Hudson,
Here.
Trevelyan,
Here.
McKinney,
Here.
and Trimble is absent, so we have 4 members present, Your Honor.
Okay. Ryan, any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes, Your Honor.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve it?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the agenda's approved. Maybe before I go to citizens forum, how many folks are here for 6H, which is the Raccoon River Basin Sanitary Sewer Trunk Connection? Okay, we're deferring that tonight. We're not going to take public comment because we're going to have further meetings with city staff to make sure we answer all your questions and try to get everything worked out before we actually have a public hearing. I know our staff's been communicated to by not only a lot of people, but also the county attorney and the county engineer. So I know there's a lot of questions out there. We're not going to do anything with that tonight. And I don't know, Tom, if we have any more specifics on getting a meeting and getting people's questions answered.
City engineer will set up a meeting and before the next council meeting.
So
We need notice
6H.
beforehand.
Yeah. I just drove 45 minutes to be here.
Do it now.
The letter H is completely off the agenda, and we can leave.
Right.
Well-
The hearing is continued.
You got in the letter though that if we don't sign our objections by tonight,
Yeah.
we automatically.
no, we're going to.
It's in the letter you sent us.
I know, but that was when they thought action was going to be taken tonight. We're not taking any action on it. We're talking about making sure you get all your questions answered. We think that there's, that we need to look at the formula again. There's a whole lot of things that, we're trying to work with you guys so we can make it something that's more acceptable than obviously with all the questions that we saw coming in. We wanted to try to get this thing resolved in a way that people are a lot more comfortable with than where it sits tonight.
But, you guys sent us a letter, so we had to be ready tonight for it. Why aren't you ready tonight for it?
Well, we were trying to get it resolved so that we could work it out so that people were more acceptable with it.
It's not gonna happen.
What do you mean resolved on it? Or you don't even know the boundaries for sure?
No, we know the boundaries. The question is, as I understand it, the question is really, a big piece of it is how much it's going to cost. Also, no one's mandated to hook to it. You would never have to pay unless and until you hook to it. So from the resident standpoint, if you never hook to the line, you don't have to pay any of it.
It would be West Lawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't want that.
We don't
Okay.
want it.
There's also additional restrictions that you failed to actually communicate to of the 200 and the 400. I think you need to be fully clear when you say you can opt out.
See, that's all the reason why we need to make sure we have a meeting so that we don't have a bunch of misunderstandings.
We're having a meeting.
That's why we're here. And that's what the letters are telling us to be here for.
We set aside everything for this agenda tonight, so we are here for this.
Tom or Lynn, is there a way that we could give the residents of Madison County here tonight more of a timeline? If it's not tonight, is there any way that?
There is no timeline.
Were they, what,
Okay, well, if you want, I'm happy to have a public hearing, but very well the council could delay voting on it to try to resolve the issues.
Can I read off the letter that you sent us? It says, owners of property within the district may appear and be heard regarding adoption of the ordinance. A property owner will be deemed to avoid all objections unless the objections are made at the hearing.
And what we're suggesting is we're going to delay that hearing.
No, this is the hearing.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have to ask the staff because until I saw all the objections coming in, we didn't even know the letter went out. So in fairness to the, what?
Your city clerk sent it out.
I know. So I don't know, Brian, if you want to respond, but when I saw, I didn't know this letter was going out. I don't know if it came through a committee or what. But when I saw all the objections and all the issues being raised, that's when I suggested to Tom, why don't we have more of a meeting so we can try to respond to folks' questions?
yeah. They need to.
So Brian Hemesas, city engineer, this actually did come through the Public Services council committee meeting,
Okay.
and we were directed to do a study, to go through, we went through with Veenster and Kim, to come up with a study, to come up with a new boundary and the new fees. And then we, and then we worked through it. Dick and I worked through the,
This
work
letter
through
was
the
sent out.
issues.
There was a mistake because the notice wasn't included in the letter, so we sent a second letter out. And we said, we're sorry that the meeting notice was not in there, so we sent another letter out saying that the meeting would be tonight. I received several calls, first from Matt Schultz, the county attorney. He said that the residents were not happy with the letter. They wanted more clarification. So then I spoke to Heather Stansel. I talked to her twice or 3 times. I sent an explanation the first time around that I believe that she sent to each of you, or she said she was going to make that available to the residents. I don't, okay, well, I'm sorry, that's what, well, I'm not sorry for, Supervisor Stansel said that she would make that letter available. I don't know if she did or not, so.
Steve, I want to be unpopular with everybody up here, but I think, given the fact that they are here, we sent the letter out that said, come here and speak your piece. I think we need to let them do it.
Well, if you'd,
I'd like to add one more thing. Mr. Critelli, I did speak to Mr. Critelli last Friday, and he indicated to me that he represented some, if not all, of the petitioners. I don't know exactly how many. And I told him that we were going to continue. It was a recommendation that the council continue this on Monday. And he told me that that would probably be a good idea in order for everybody to confer and have an informational meeting so there could be more clarification as to what the city is actually doing. Because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what the city is actually attempting to do here. A lot of people are shaking their heads because they believe that they know what we're going to do. And that could be, and obviously, if we have an informational meeting, you might still be opposed to it, but at least we will be able to explain this to you. My point with Mr. Critelli's conversation was that he and I, Mr. Critelli, maybe you could explain that he and I both felt, or he felt that would be good as well. So the fact that you were not communicated to this, about this continuance, I'm not blaming anybody. I'm sorry that occurred, but it was just felt that it would be more advantageous and beneficial if everybody could get together in a group and have us explain to you. I'm not asking you that you're going to agree with the situation, but at least you'll have a better understanding of what this district is all about.
I'd like to speak. No, let me finish. Let me speak. Okay.
1 second, and then we'll come back.
I do want to acknowledge that we have a full house of folks that are here, and that this is being deferred, and that they did not know that it was being deferred. It puts us in a little bit of a bind because I've never seen this place fuller. And to have them walk out and maybe not be heard, I have concerns about that. And Mayor, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I see a whole host of folks that are here, and the city should have gotten a letter out to them. Somebody should have gotten a letter out to them. We have to acknowledge that mistakes do happen, but a letter should have gone out, calls or whomever or whatever we needed to do. So this is a little bit of a bind when you have folks that are here that want their voices heard, and they came because we sent them a letter. They never got another letter. So this is really a challenge.
That's fine, and I'm not suggesting that we're not being heard. The idea was if we had an informational meeting, maybe you got your questions answered, and then when we had the public hearing, the thing got resolved. If you're here and you'd rather have the public hearing tonight, we're happy to hear you out, have the conversation, but there very, very well may be, based on the questions and the issues, some type of an action to defer to try to resolve your concerns before they actually vote on it. So I'm happy to do it either way. We want to hear you. I was just suggesting, is it better off to have a meeting and see if you can get everything resolved before actually we have the public hearing? But no one's trying to stop you from discussing it. The question is, at what point do we discuss it? We were hoping to resolve it short of this. But if you're here and you want to have your say tonight, happy to hear you, and we'll keep moving forward with it.
I think we should again.
All right. Okay.
I don't know if I speak for everyone here, but it feels like we have not had our voices heard. We don't necessarily want your amenities. we don't care about your sewer and your water and everything else. We're quite happy where we're at.
Can we just wait and talk about this under 6H? I mean, we've already said, I think the majority is that we're gonna let you be heard, but.
Yeah, and
this
people need to
isn't the time,
identify their
it's
names.
6H.
No, we're gonna move on then. So we need to amend the agenda, not to continue.
Hang
We'll
on.
we'll have a
hang
public
on.
hearing on, we'll have a public hearing on 6H. So we're gonna go back to the agenda, and we need to amend the agenda so that we change 6H, so that the public hearing is actually gonna occur tonight now. That's the consensus.
I move that we keep the public hearing tonight on 6H.
Second.
All right, so all in favor of the amended agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we'll have the public hearing, but we're gonna wait until 6H, and we'll take everybody's comments
We need
then.
to know when the hell that hearing's gonna be.
That's tonight.
Tonight.
It's tonight. Give us some time.
We have a lot of things on the agenda, but it's tonight.
Okay, so item 2 is citizens forum, which is the time for anyone who's here that wants to address the council on any item that's not part of public hearings, which is item 6, or new business item 7. Okay, if you come up to the podium and give us your name and your address.
All right, I'm Mitchell Callahan. I'm at 804 4th Street, across from Collins Aerospace. I just wanted to make a really quick comment about kind of the development going on in Valley Junction and represent kind of a younger cohort of people who haven't been speaking very much lately. We're excited to see the improving density down on 5th Street. We're excited for the infrastructure investments that have been happening, the sidewalkscaping, and we're definitely looking forward to more discussion on this and working with the council and others to find some solutions that we know are contentious in addition to the many other things. So thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else for citizens forum? Okay, your name and address, please.
Hello, my name's Anthony Holm. I live at 601 51st Street. Okay, so gun control is a really controversial problem in the country, and especially in Iowa. And at the state level, there's a lot of restrictions on what you guys can do. However, I think I speak for most of us when I say that West Des Moines is a fairly moderate to left-leaning area in Iowa. And so I would like to see some local progress made towards that. And to that end, I think West Des Moines is, and the innovations that our city is kind of known for, are a great place to pursue bipartisan legislation that isn't really seen at the national level. And I have an idea of what that could look like. And I would also like to ask that the city council brainstorm different policies that could be pursued that are bipartisan and could work to innovate and progress gun control legislation. And to that end, I see gun violence in the home as a very large problem in this country, and something in Iowa especially that needs to be addressed. Specifically, self-inflicted gunshot wounds, as well as mistaken shootings of people who you think are intruders, that kind of thing. And so I would like to advocate that the city implement a policy, or look to implementing a policy of community armories, where rather than storing the gun in the home, people can opt in to have a location that is safe and nearby to store their arms instead of having them in the home. That way there's a bit of a downtime between, having some idea of using your firearm and getting access to it to, maybe not make a horrible decision. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Anthony.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary Leffler, 1235 11th Street. Some things that have been brought to my attention, I've got some questions about, and hopefully you guys can provide some more illumination on it. But this goes on to how we're spending $40 or $50 million on with Google, some kind of enterprise with them. And I'm just wondering, was the normal bidding processes followed regarding how we are communicating with Google and moving this project forward?
And Gary, I guess some of the issues you're raising, Mediacom's raised in their lawsuit. So we're not at liberty to discuss current pending litigation. I think if you want to talk to the city attorney about some of your questions, we can probably answer some of them. But in light of the litigation, we're not at freedom to talk about any of the issues that have been raised by Mediacom in their lawsuit.
Well, then let me ask you a question. If that is your stance on this, is is there going to be votes that are taken to continue to move the process forward, even though we have litigation that is come forth before the city? Or are we moving ahead with the project, or we've said, you know what, we need to stop proceeding forward until we have an answer on this litigation? Is that, what's the city council's prognosis on this?
Yeah, we're moving forward. We had
Well, why
more,
would you move forward if you got outstanding litigation?
we had more public hearings than that were legally required. So we can't talk about it tonight at the litigation. And about the litigation, all I can tell you is we continue to have public hearings to move this project forward. And so whatever questions you might have, you're gonna have to address them to the city attorney, be in light of the litigation, and we're happy to respond to them.
So I have to go through the city attorney. I've got the city council right here. I can't get an answer from you.
We're in
folks.
litigation.
we're
We
in
can't talk
litigation.
about it when it's an active litigation.
Well, does it make sense to me that if I'm getting sued, or if we're getting sued, or if we have litigation, that we're continuing to move the project forward until we have an answer to the outstanding litigation?
Well, obviously, we don't think there's any validity to the litigation. So my guess is a lot of your questions have been answered in the court filings. And that's why we're happy to facilitate as much as we can. But in an open meeting and with pending litigation, we're not at liberty to discuss any of the questions or issues that you want to raise tonight.
Well, then evidently, though, you're able to have private meetings with amongst yourselves and discussing and moving the project forward, but somehow all the taxpayers, we're not privy to the information. I don't think this is right. I think something is.
Give me a call, sir, and I'd be glad to talk to you about
Something
it.
is seriously wrong here when we're moving ahead with a $50 million project that was marketed as being free to the people, and it's not free because we're taxpayers. The taxpayers pay for everything. So I'm gonna for sure call you. If you got a card, I'll take a card from you. But this process of where we have people that are, as I understand it, it was like a one-day process. It was all voted in, it was all done. And
You're misinformed.
well, I just do know this, though. I've been in business since I was almost for 50 years. And anytime I had a lawsuit against me, we stopped, got clarity on that before we move forward. Somehow we're continuing with moving forward. We're spending $50 million, and we don't have clarity on the legality of it. I think it's wrong.
Well, I would encourage you then to meet with Dick and make sure you understand what the facts
I
are.
don't have a card with me, but
Call you tomorrow.
Anyone else for citizens forum? Okay, we'll move on to council and city manager reports. Matt?
Nothing at this time, Your Honor.
Kevin?
Nothing this time.
Greg?
Nothing this time, Mayor.
All right, Renee?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to congratulate you on your final and last mayor's annual bike ride. Nice showing of folks, and it was a wonderful time had by many. And we had a public safety meeting, Councilman Trimble and I, and as chair, we have asked the chief to come forward to the council at some soon time to release the findings of the recommendation of the task force and where we're going from that. So I'm hoping that we'll hear from the public safety recommendations here pretty soon. Thank you.
All right, Tom?
The legislature's just about over, I think, in the next week or so. And the one bill that's of particular interest that they are going to eliminate backfill that was promised when they reduced to commercial property tax from 100% to 90%. That resulted in a $2.4 million loss per year to the city of West Des Moines. It's going to be over 5 years phased in, though, so it'll be by 5 years the whole amount will be gone, and I think that'll be part of their compromise.
Okay.
Thank you.
Consent agenda, and we'll make note of MediaCom's letter that they submitted tonight raising objections to 4G1, 4L1, 6N, and 6O, and Ryan will make sure that the letter's part of the proceedings for those items. So we'll pull 4G1 and 4L1. Are there any other matters, any of the other consent agenda items that any council member wants to pull?
4J.
Okay, hold on.
And I'd like to pull 4V for clarification purposes.
4V.
V as in Victor.
I'd also like to pull 4H2 4I1. And you're pulling the two other conduit items, Mayor, is that right?
Yeah. Okay. Someone want to move the balance of those?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Those items are approved. So if I got in the right order, Orion, you might have to keep me on track. 4G1 is a motion to approve change orders for the Digital Enterprise Conduit Deployment Segment 5, Phase 2, Number 1.
Move for approval?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And we'll show Matt abstaining on that one.
Thank you.
4H2 is a motion to approve professional services agreement for Railroad Park Restrooms, Matt.
Yes. So this morning, we had a development and planning meeting where the topic of some city-initiated art along Fifth Street there in Valley Junction would be moving forward. And I had some questions about whether or not, given the moratorium on, I'll just say exterior modifications, really what does somebody see when they drive through the area, whether it would apply to that art. And of course, when we're looking at this city-initiated railroad park restrooms, what I don't know is this a new building? Is this an existing structure? Are we going to ensure that the standard we apply here is going to be the same standard we apply elsewhere in Valley Junction? So I don't have enough sense here as to whether we carved out 3 projects from the moratorium. I don't know, are we going to carve this one out from that? Would this apply to it, given that we're building a new structure or rehabbing an existing structure?
I don't know, Lynn, are you the one to respond to that? Well, it's Park and Rec's project, but I guess Matt's question is, do we have any architectural standards or anything else that are going to apply to building this restroom facility that would apply to any other project down there?
Yeah, Lynn Tweet, Director of Development Services. Sally would probably have to talk best about what it is, but no, we typically would not apply a historic standard or anything to the restroom facility. Really, it's just kind of making sure that it works from a durability standpoint more than anything. But I don't believe it would fall under the moratorium of no exterior modifications and no demolitions. But
Is it an existing structure or is it a new structure? Do we know?
Sally, you want to talk about this?
As Sally, thank you for coming. My understanding is right there, when you pull into Valley Junction, it's going to be kind of right on Fifth Street. It'd be pretty important to have something as you pull in to kind of meet a standard we're going to try to, I think, ensure others apply to. So this is what is going through my mind as I'm reading this.
Sally Ortke is Director of Parks and Recreation. And we would agree, Councilman McKinney, that we would want it to blend with that district. We would want to be using materials that, are matching with what else is in Railroad Park. What's before you tonight is really the start of that design process with an architect. And so throughout that, we would be having these kind of conversations with that architect.
What it's
But it is a
replacing,
new building. It's a brand new building.
but it's replacing the Kaibo enclosures that are down there now.
Okay.
So Sally, will the project, when it's designed, come back through the public hearing process? Or what's the checks and balances on the aesthetics of it? I think is probably where that's going as well.
That's fair. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's a good question. We would be going through an approval process. I would imagine it would be a minor modification to the site plan for Railroad Park. And then, of course, we would be coming before you to order construction before, taking bids, and it would be going through that whole public improvement process.
So we could have public input as well as the council input as to what it looks like.
Yes.
That's great. I
Probably
appreciate it.
multiple points in the process.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
I'd move for H2.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstention? That item's approved. 4I, Matt, is a motion to approve the amendments to professional services agreements for the library interior renovations.
Yeah. So if I could get back to where I was at. So as I read through this, this is about coordination of signage. And, recently, we had a sign project for the Recplex. And it was there's a sizable expense related to that signage. And so I'm curious, when it says coordination of signage, does this include the signage? Or is this just, I don't know, making some sort of determination as to whether we need signage? And the reason I ask is, as I looked at the overall budget, we've invested a lot there. I just want to get a sense of, is this closing it out, or is this getting into a whole new area?
Okay, and I see this came through Public Services Council Committee, so who wants to speak to this?
I'm sorry, this is Brian Hemesas, city engineer. I don't know the answer to that question. That's something that I can look into and get back with you on. Apologize.
I don't know, is Daryl on this call? Can Daryl answer the question?
Maybe we ought to defer it for 2 weeks.
It'd be appropriate for Daryl to answer the question because the library is, acts independently of this body and library board.
So if Daryl's not on the call, we ought to continue it for 2 weeks.
Yes.
That'd be good. I'd move to defer it for 2 weeks.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that item's deferred for 2 weeks. 4J, Kevin, a motion to approve parental leave policy.
Yes, two things. One, I'm glad to see that this is going to apply to everybody, all employees right out of the gate, rather than having to go through their respective unions that a couple of the departments, police and fire, were going to have to. But I do have a question, though. Under eligibility, and I don't know if Jane's on the call or who's going to address this, but it says that the employee has to have successfully completed their probationary period. It's my understanding that police and fire, and I'm not 100% sure about EMS, but police and fire have a 1-year probation. All other employees have a 6-month probation. So I'm a little concerned as to why we've got the disparity there. Why couldn't everybody be a 6-month? Or who's going to address this?
I sat at Public Safety, and that discussion was had. Chief was at the meeting, and also Chief Lou, and both of them, and Tom, you might want to correct as you were at the meeting as well, and Jamie, spoke to, they were okay with the year. We particularly asked them. They gave rationale for about the year. And Jane, I don't know if you're on the call, but there was lots of discussion around 1 year versus 6 months. And both of them, as chiefs of their respective departments, both police and fire, were comfortable and okay with the 1 year.
Okay.
So we discussed that at length.
All right. I'm glad to hear that it was at least discussed.
So I too came to that meeting in support of them being covered. That was never an issue on our end because it was approved in F&A first of all. So we then dealt with it in public safety. Both Russ and I both were always in agreement that they should be covered. We spent a lot of time talking about the 1 year and the 6 month. Glad both of the chiefs were there and both spoke to that 1 year not being an issue for them.
What was HR's reason for having the two separate times, though?
Currently, it's 6 months for the other employees of the city, and it's a year, so we're just going to stay with what the current probationary period is for each one.
But was there any discussion about, on this particular one, allowing police and fire to have a 6 month?
Yeah, yes, then both chiefs.
What was the reason for not doing that, though?
Well, because, and they're probably listening, they could come in the chamber if they want to talk to it, but they spend a lot of time and effort to train the people to get there, and they don't want to make mistakes because if it doesn't work out, those people could be with the city for a long time, and they just felt that year is necessary.
I'm not saying reduce the 1-year probation. I'm just saying on this particular benefit, why does it have to be I mean, we could do anything we wanted to and make it a 6-month just for this benefit's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not saying reducing their probationary period because I think those
Right.
do need to be a 1 year. Obviously, that's why they are, but it's just, I think on this one benefit, it could be
Well,
6 months across the board.
Councilman Tremmel, Trevelyan, we talked about that, and we spent at least 20-something minutes talking about the 1 year or oh, hi there. All right, there you go.
Chief Lou and Chief
Yeah,
Scott,
nothing
I'm
like
not
having
saying
you
to
both in person.
I'm not saying to reduce your probationary period across the board. I'm just wondering why on this one item, couldn't it be a 6-month? That way it matches everybody else in the city. Just
Sure.
this one item.
Craig Lou, Fire and EMS Chief. We talked about this in detail. Our take is that on a year, it's a very structured year. So the fact that we do it a year is just for that reason. So they can't take time off, the unplanned leaves really throw a wrench into the whole system. That was really the key to the discussion. We take a year, we have it pretty well mapped out, and that's how we do it. And we've done it that way for a long time. Chris?
Chris Scott, Chief of Police. Councilman, I would say that during that first year, we go through a lot of critical state mandated training. And so for them to be absent during that time period, to be frank, just doesn't make sense. You know, life happens. We get that. But under the current scenario, if they weren't able to attend the academy for whatever reason it was, we would go on to probably our next candidate.
Well, and I'm not saying about the academy, but if somebody comes on and, you know, before their year's up, has a baby, they still can take the time off. They can take Family Medical Leave Act, I believe, and the whole bit.
Right.
So that's what I understand that you guys have your structured, it takes a year to get, you know, a street cop and, you know, firefighter, but there are issues that could come up and they're going to miss that time. I don't think this is going to happen a lot. I'm just saying personally, I just don't like the disparity, but if that's the way it needs to be, that's fine.
I appreciate, I think we all in the room agree, life does happen sometimes.
Right.
I would say, you know, as Chief already said, you know, that first year is an assessment period for 12 months that we use to determine if they're going to fit.
Okay.
And if we were to lose them for a time period due to, you know, life taking place, it would delay that, or we would have to extend that, or we would have to make another time period that's reasonable to make that assessment. And I think that in that conversation that we had that day, we felt that leaving it as it is was the best course of action.
Okay. All right.
Well,
I'll move it.
I appreciate Chief Lou and Chief Scott coming up. I didn't even know you were in the building. So I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate you sharing with the group a little bit of the thoughts that we heard at the meeting. When we have leaders that are in these positions, it's important to listen to what their desires are and how it affects their operations. And that's what we did on the committee level. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So Kevin moved for J. Someone want to second it? Second.
Thanks, gentlemen.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? 4L1 is a resolution to order construction of digital enterprise conduit deployment segment 4, phase 1.
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we'll show Matt abstaining on that one.
Thank you.
4V, Renee, resolution to approve of continuation of a temporary moratorium on certain development activities in Historic Valley Junction Business District.
Yeah, and I really wanted it pulled just for clarification. When I read the resolution that describes this, I want to make sure, I want to get back to what we talked about when we were talking about a committee. Let me find it here. Got so many of these that have been pulled.
Isn't Victor.
It says that the city council also directed city staff to assemble a committee comprised of citizens, property owners, and city staff to provide input in the selection of a consultant, and based upon the findings of the consultant, make recommendations to the city council regarding development of the business district. So just needing clarification on the status of the committee. I know that there's something in the agenda that says it's going to an implementation committee, but just in interest of full transparency, I don't want citizens that thought after our last meeting, there was going to be a bit more of a robust committee put together that they were going to be involved in. And if that's a shift, I think we really need to talk about that.
Lynn Tweet, Director of Development Services. We fully intended to talk through this really more with 9A as the other matters. What our intention to do right now is with the RFQ, staff will draft the RFQ. It will go through the Development and Planning Subcommittee, and then we are going to use the Implementation Committee as kind of the review of just the RFQ piece of it. So that's already an established committee that we have easy access to, so we can kind of keep that piece moving forward. The RFQ will then go out. We'll have about a 3-week delay in there where we'll be getting the proposals back. During that time is when we can figure out do you want to continue to use that Implementation Committee? Do you want to expand it? What do you want to do with it? As far as who's going to review those RFQs and help make the recommendation with the consultant. Once we get a consultant on board, it's kind of staff's mindset that there really is several different focus areas on this. All of them could warrant having their own kind of committees that focus on those, with that consultant kind of herding the cats, for lack of a better way to put it. So we really see that there's an opportunity to really expand the number of people that can be involved in this whole process from a steering committee standpoint by having specific groups that kind of focus on this historic aspect, focus on the architectural guidelines, one maybe on the parking, one on the common areas, and then have all of that come together under that consultant. So right now we are using just that implementation committee. Kevin, you can speak to the makeup of it, but to my understanding, it is business owners, it's property owners, it's residents. It has a little bit of a cross section to it. So we feel that was good enough to get the RFQ out, and then we can continue having those discussions.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, in interest of full disclosure, the implementation committee will be, their charge is to help develop the RFP or look at it or review it and select the consultant. Is that correct?
Well, at least to look over the RFQ that staff drafts and make sure that we have all of the pieces that we have studied in it. Whether or not we want the implementation committee then to also be on that that consultant selection committee. I think there's still time to talk about what does that makeup look like.
And so the involvement of concerned citizens or engaged citizens that want to voice and be a part of the process, that's after the consultant has been hired? I just want to make sure I understand, because I'm not sure that that's the understanding from the last meeting that we had.
Right. We feel to keep it moving forward, it's better to have all the residents that want to be involved on the various aspects to really be under the consultant working through that, creating the final product. Up until then, it's kind of housekeeping that we're really doing. Like I said, making sure that we have the right parts and pieces in the RFQ. And then, like I said, that group who decides on the consultant, I think that we can still figure out.
Okay, and then after the meeting, there were a group of folks that put their name in and put their contact information. What are we doing with that? I know you got a lot going on, but are we keeping them in the loop on progress, or they just need to be tuned into what's going on at City Council? I just think there were some expectations in terms of how they were going to be communicated with and reached out to after the meeting. So there was just a lot of progress made at our last meeting, and I just don't want anything to fall through the cracks because of expectations that are going on now that are different than maybe what people thought after our last meeting. Is that fair?
Certainly it's fair. We did take them down. I know Linda has them as part of what she has. Right now, we just really haven't had that need to necessarily reach out and ask those specific questions to them. I guess in my mind, and Linda can correct me if I'm wrong, as we continue through this process, that's where we reach out to them and make sure they're getting involved and have their say on that. But Linda, do you want to add?
Linda Schimmel, Development Coordinator. Really what we're working on behind the scenes is what is that interface? Is it the website? Is it a separate website? Is it a way to just send out polls? And we need to have a good tool or method to do that before we start reaching out to people and say, oh, go to this website. Oh, no, wait a minute, go over here. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work, and we know everybody's anxious, and we're working as best we can to get all this resolved. And that's why that update in 9A is there. So you can kind of see that whole plan laid out, and we'll continue to do those updates, but we'll look for another method to get that information to people that we know will be a solid way to get that communication started.
Are there emails on that list that they signed up 2 weeks ago?
Yes, I've got their emails.
What I would ask is that we at least send an email out to everybody that says, we're still moving forward with this, and, just because I know there's some of them that think it's been 2 weeks and nothing's happened. And that's the last thing that I want anybody to think, is that nothing's happening.
Yeah, we can certainly do
So
that.
let's get an email sent out in the next day or two to just tell them that, where we're at and where we're headed.
And if I can finish, the reason I pull that is because it really is important that we try to do the best that we can to be transparent and keep folks in the loop, because I think we built a lot of goodwill after that last meeting and a lot of work that we still need to do. But I still think there are still questions and concerns about how they're going to get engaged. When do they get engaged in the process? How long do they wait? So just trying to keep as much communication out there in the public domain so that they know will be great.
Right.
So with that, I'm okay. I move.
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? That item is approved. Item 5, old business. 5A, South Branch Business Park, southwest corner of Southeast Army Post Road and Southeast 42nd Street. Amend the zoning map to designate 12 acres of general industrial land use and to establish the South Brand Business Park Plan Unit Development, SBBP JV 21 LLC. This was continued from the April 19th City Council agenda. This is an ordinance for the second, third reading, final adoption, and there are no changes from the first reading.
Move for consideration, second reading.
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, Ryan?
4 yes, an ordinance to amend the city code of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2019 by amending Title IX zoning, Chapter 9, Plan Unit Development District pertaining to Plan Unit Development District regulations and guidelines.
Move for approval of the second reading.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right.
Move to waive the third reading and adopt in final form.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That ordinance is approved. 5B, 130 South 9th Street and city-owned parcels to the south of Lincoln Street between the 600 and 900 block. Amend zoning map to establish business park land use and zoning on a portion of 130 9th Street and to establish open space land use and zoning on city-owned property south of Lincoln Street. City initiated this also as an ordinance for the second and third reading, final adoption, and there are no changes from the first reading.
Move consideration of second reading.
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ryan?
4 yes, an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2019 by amending Title IX zoning, Chapter 4, zoning districts and maps.
Move approval of second reading.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right.
Move waiving third reading and adopt in final form.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that ordinance is adopted. 5C, Amendment to City Code Title II, Boards and Commissions, Chapter 2, Board of Adjustment, modify regulations pertaining to zoning exceptions for accessory structures in the front yard. City initiated this also as an ordinance for the second, third reading, final adoption. There are no changes from the first reading.
Move consideration of the second reading.
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, Ryan?
4 yes, an ordinance amending the city code of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2019, Title II, Boards and Commissions, Chapter 2, Board of Adjustment pertaining to zoning exceptions for accessory structures in the front yard.
Move approval of the second reading.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right.
Move waiving the third reading and adopt in final form.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That ordinance is approved as well. Item 6, public hearings. Item 6A, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider amendment to City Code Title IX zoning, Chapter 16, temporary use permits, add parameters for temporary drive-in theaters, initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
May 1st, 2021, in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
The Planning and Zoning Commission, by a vote of 6 yes, 1 was absent, adopted a resolution recommending approval of the ordinance amendment.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the City Council on item 6A. All right, hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. There are no outstanding issues, and this came through the Development and Planning Council Committee with a recommendation to approve.
Move or consideration of the first reading.
Second.
Any other questions or comments?
I'm just curious, and I suppose this is for a Lynn question, but how are they going to screen this so you're not seeing it from any of the streets, given the fact that that part of the mall is bounded by 3 streets?
Lynn Tweet, Director of Development Services, we actually had him take his truck out and set it up on site so that we could evaluate that. It will back up to Westtown Parkway, so to the north it'll be the Yonkers building. As you come around Westtown from the east, coming around west, you may get a little glimpse of it, but it's a very short, there's not any kind of duration to that look at it. The same thing actually happens on Valley West Drive between where you're driving on Valley West, the trees that are in the different islands, the height of the screen and everything. You really can't see it for any length of time. It's not just an intermittent blocked view. I had asked, I didn't actually come out to see it at the time because I was up north, but I point blank asked, had you not known what movie was showing, could you see enough to tell what movie it was? And the general consensus was, no, you do not have enough of a view of this to really see it or have it draw your attention, really.
Okay, because I know with the digital sign over at the football stadium, that was an issue,
Yep.
that you couldn't see it from anything. And so I guess, I'm good with this. We'll have, one season to see if it works or not, and maybe we'll continue this even next year. But, all right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on 6A? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Ryan?
4 yes, an ordinance amending City Code of the City of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2019, Title IX zoning, Chapter 16, temporary use permits pertaining to temporary uses.
You want to
Move approval.
There a
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the first reading's approved. Item 6B, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider amendment to City Code Title IX zoning, Chapter 3 general zoning provisions, modify regulations pertaining to the use of legal non-conforming buildings or structures, initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
April 30th, 2021, in the Des Moines Register.
Have we received any written comments?
The Planning and Zoning Commission, by a vote of 6 yes, 1 was absent, adopted a resolution recommending approval of the ordinance amendment.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the City Council on item 6B. All right, seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Again, this is an ordinance for the first reading. There are no outstanding issues. And Development and Planning Council Committee actually dealt with this at 2 of their committee meetings with a recommendation to approve.
I move consideration of the first reading.
Second. Second.
Any questions or comments?
I'd just say, as you pointed out, it came through twice. We didn't have any issues before the committee, and I think it went through without issue, so.
Yeah, and I know that this, the owner of this has contacted me on a number of occasions, and I appreciate the flexibility on trying to figure out additional potential uses for this non-conforming use.
Right.
That gives the property owner a little bit more flexibility, but doesn't adversely impact the city. So appreciate the flexibility and creativity. So someone want to move the first reading?
Move the approval of the first reading.
Second.
Are there any other questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Brian?
4 yes, an ordinance amending the City Code of the City of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2019, Title IX zoning, Chapter 3, general zoning provisions, Section 4, non-conforming buildings, structures, uses of land, or uses of buildings or structures.
Want to move approval of the first reading?
Move approval.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the first reading's approved. Item 6C, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider amendment number 3 to the historic West Des Moines urban renewal area initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
May 7th, 2021, in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the city council on item 6C. All right, seeing or hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. This indicates there's no outstanding issues, and this came through Finance and Administration Council Committee on 3 occasions.
Move for approval?
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments?
Question. On 2 of these, they're the ones that benefited from the upper story housing funds. So this is above and beyond that money, correct?
Mayor, this is Clyde Evans, Community and Economic Development Director. That would be correct. This is a separate program from the upper story housing program.
So do we have to take this with all 3 of them, or can we partition this out?
Well, aren't these the 3 projects that were exempted from the moratorium other than the architectural issues?
They were.
Okay. So I think that's probably one reason why they're all together.
This doesn't affect any additional consideration of the architectural issue.
No.
Is that fair?
No, it just gives them more money.
Potentially, they can qualify under programs. They come through the Citizens Committee for recommendation. Okay. Any other questions on 6C? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Any abstentions? All right, that item passes 3-1. Item 6D, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider amendment number 3 to the Fuller Road Urban Renewal Area initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
May 7th, 2021, in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the city council on item 6D. All right, seeing no one and hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. This is a resolution to approve the urban renewal plan. It indicates there's no outstanding issues, and this came through Finance and Administration Council Committee with a recommendation to approve.
Move for approval?
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that item's approved. Item 6E, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider West Des Moines Van Meter Annexation Moratorium and Subdivision Review Agreement initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
May 4th, 2021, in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the city council on item 6E. All right, seeing no one and hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. This came through the Development and Planning Council Committee as well. In the past, we've had an annexation agreement with Van Meter. I understand the city of Van Meter's approved this agreement at their public hearing at their May 10th city council meeting. And we're being asked to approve the same agreement.
Move for approval?
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That agreement is approved. Item 6F, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider the agreement for private development initiated by Claim Doc LLC. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
May 7th, 2021, in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience who'd like to address the city council on item 6F. All right, seeing no one and hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. There are no outstanding issues, and this also came through Finance and Administration Council Committee with a recommendation to approve.
I'll move for approval?
Second.
Questions or comments? All All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That item is approved. Item 6G, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider Community Development Block Grant Program 2021-22 Annual Action Plan initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
May 7th, 2021 in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, and we'll note that on the dais tonight was an updated memo from Christine Gordon because the actual money available increased. So she's provided the additional dollar amounts from the increase that we were noticed today. It's another $4,925. So now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the City Council on item 6G. All right, seeing no one and hearing no one, we'll declare the public hearing closed. And this came through Finance and Administration Council Committee as well.
For approval.
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that item passes as well. Item 6H that we discussed a little earlier is a public hearing on the ordinance to amend the Raccoon River Basin Sanitary Sewer Connection Fee District to June 7 of 2021. Ryan, what do you want to do on it as far as the date and public notification?
I can give that to you.
Okay.
The date of publication was April 29th and May 6th, 2021 in the Des Moines Register.
Okay, and we'll take public comment, but do we have any written comments other than?
There have been a number received. We didn't include all those in the packet. Some of them were received today, but we anticipated including them in the packet for the next meeting when the public hearing would be.
Okay.
But there is a petition included as well.
Okay,
That was
well,
attached.
I'm sure the residents will raise those issues tonight, but can we make sure that the stuff we have, the information we have in writing gets included with this?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so before I ask for public comment from the folks in the audience, what I first want to do is ask, I don't know, Brian, if you're the one, but someone from the staff to give an overview on what this project is and why we're suggesting that it be get done. Why did we public notice this? What are we trying to accomplish with this? I think we know some of the concerns that have been raised by the residents. To the extent you can respond to any of those, and then I'll open it up for public comment.
Sure. Brian Hemeseth, City Engineer. I'll tackle some of those questions, and then Bob Veenstra is actually on the Teams call with us, and he may be able to answer some of the more technical questions. So it was brought to our attention. Tom and some of the city council members wanted us to take a look at the Raccoon River Fee District and the fee that was per acre fee that was in that district. So what we did is we did a study with Veenstra and Kim. They took a look at that fee district and looked at expanding the fee district south to include areas that would be future annexed by the city of West Des Moines versus Cumming. So it's running along the Moratorium line between West Des Moines and Cumming. So basically then what we did, or what Bob Veenstra did, is he looked at the area that would be included in that area, essentially the area that drains to Badger Creek, and looked at what type of infrastructure would need to be constructed to be able to service that entire area. There's a pretty significant portion of area that is served by Veterans Parkway that we just recently constructed that isn't being served by sewer, isn't in any of our fee districts. So we thought it was important to make sure that we were able to service those areas that we have roads and water to. So what Bob did was he expanded, he looked at that district, he expanded it, and then he determined what that infrastructure would cost. And then he took it's essentially just taking what the infrastructure would cost and dividing it by the number of acres. And then he combined that with the other portion of the Raccoon River district to come up with that. I think it's around $6,600. Bob Veenstra, if you're on the line, you can hear me. Is there anything additional that you would add to that to give any more clarification to the city council?
I think one thing is that when we looked at it, there are some areas that will be necessary, some sewers, some force mains that are actually outside the district just because of the topography. We did not include those. So not all of the cost is included in that cost that's allocated to the district, but the sewers within the district and the pump station would be allocated. This follows the same procedure the city has used for the last 20 years in the district that's already there, that's sort of draining toward the Raccoon River as well as the other connection fee districts. So the methodology follows exactly what the city has used for the last 20 years. And in doing so, what the city has done is looked out long-term and said, we know it's going to take many, many years to build out the infrastructure, and not all the area will eventually be served. But to establish a cost that spreads the entire cost over the area, rather than trying to spread the majority of the cost over the initial development area, which then really runs the fee up higher. And then, so we're trying to just look out in the long term, recognizing it may be 20, 30, 40 or more years before some of these areas eventually develop, but having a consistent policy for all of our 4 major connection fee districts. So the methodology, again, matches what the city has done for the last 20 years in all 4 of our connection fee districts.
And legally, no property owner would have to pay the fee unless and until they connect to the sewer, correct?
That's right. Or they develop their property and plan to connect to the sewer. Okay. And none of these sewers are constructed yet. So obviously there would have to be a petition to get the sewers constructed to be able to utilize those sewers. So there's a lot of procedure that has to go on even after this is done to get those sewers constructed.
Was there an anticipated construction schedule for this?
No.
So, I guess part of the question is, why are we going through all this if there's no need for the sewer to be constructed yet?
There is need. There has been a few developers up along Grand Prairie Parkway and Veterans Parkway that have showed interest in how they could sewer particular pieces of ground. And that area drains to the south. So we aren't able, without coming up with this plan, it would be very difficult for us to get those areas sewered that are actually in the city of West Des Moines.
Okay. So I guess between Brian and Dick, based on some of the concerns that you've heard from not only these folks, but representatives on their behalf, are there other issues that they've raised that you want to talk about now before we ask for all the comments?
Well, I think I'd ask Mr. Veenstra, the concern of the property owners is that they are somehow going to be annexed to the city of West Des Moines, or why would we include property if it wasn't intended to somehow result in being in the city of West Des Moines at some point?
Right. So the and Bob can elaborate on this more, but essentially our future boundaries aren't bound by the topography necessarily. So the area that's going south towards Badger Creek is contained by the topography. So we had to, and if you take out a piece or a part of that, then the entire system wouldn't work at that point. So you have to include the entire drainage basin that is that West Des Moines will future be draining into. You have to have all those sewers there, or the system won't work as a whole.
So they're a part of the bigger whole, even though they wouldn't necessarily be included in the city's annexation or development area.
Correct. We have multiple fee districts around town that portions of them are outside of the city limits of West Des Moines. We don't ever put them in areas where we wouldn't go past a moratorium line with another city where they would, or either whether it be Waukee, Van Meter, or Cumming, where they would annex. We only keep it into the areas that the moratorium would be in.
I think another question that they had is, how do they guarantee themselves, or how do we guarantee to them that they are not forced in some manner to at some point hook up to the sewer?
Right. So if you're on a septic system, the septic systems are governed by the counties. And when you have a septic system fail, you would go to the county and you would tell them, you would go get an inspection. They would say, yes, it's failed. We need to get either a new system or connect to a sewer if it's within a certain distance from the sewer. So from a functioning trunk sewer that would go to a sewage treatment plant. So those distances from that, the state code is 200 feet. So if you're within 200 feet, you would need to connect to that sewer if it's there and in service. West Des Moines expanded that in our code that says if you're within 400 feet of that sewer, that you would need to connect. So what happens is the county, then once somebody has a failed septic system, they will call the city, call engineering services, and look into that and see if there is a sewer that's available for them to connect to, and if there is, they would need to connect to it. And then another thing I think that might be a bit of confusion is if you own a property that is more than an acre, if you have just a homestead on a piece of property that's larger than an acre, you would only pay the 1 acre fee to connect to the sanitary sewer. So if you have a homestead on a 10-acre piece of ground, you would not pay $66,000 to connect to the sanitary sewer. You would only pay the $6,676, I believe, to connect to the sewer. So that's been written into our general ordinance for this for the fee districts since the fee districts were first brought to the city.
Brian, really quick, the 200 feet, 400 feet difference, 400 feet, that's city code. So if you're not a part of West Des Moines, that 400 feet would not apply to you, correct?
That's correct. But if you're in the city of West Des Moines, the 400 feet would apply.
Certainly.
And do you know, Ryan, do we set requirements on the homeowner if they want to connect to the sewer and they're not in the city? I mean, what are our requirements?
Yeah, our requirements are you have to be in the city of West Des Moines, you have to be annexed into the city of West Des Moines to connect to the sanitary sewer.
So if you were within 200 feet, you're still in the county and your septic went bad, but you were within 200 feet of our sewer, how would that operate as far as a mandatory connection because you're within 200 feet, but you're not in the city of West Des Moines?
There would have to be an exception made by the city council for that.
So the county or state could not force them to hook to it?
That, I guess.
That is correct.
Okay, Bob. Thanks, Bob. Voice from above.
Yeah, and the few times I can recall dealing with this, most of the time, it was more expensive to get a new septic system than it was to hook onto the public sewer. So we really didn't have a lot of issues because the financial reward was there.
Right, because of that homestead, the homestead, we'll call it an exemption or not an exemption, but basically a homestead, if on a larger piece of ground, you would get that essentially discount. Now, the flip side of that is if you were ever to sell that property for development in the future, then the remainder of that property would then be subject to that fee. So
only if they're in the city, though.
Right.
If you divide.
Right, if you subdivide.
And Brian, this is the county regulations is only if your septic tank has failed and it has to be replaced. Isn't that correct? You can still do maintenance and get it functioning, right?
I think, I don't know, Bob, do you have the?
Repair or rehabilitation, and I think it's up to the discretion of the county sanitarian actually as to the extent to which they require replacement versus just repairing.
Right, the county dictates it all.
Well, and again, historically, the conversations I've been in, the resident looks at what the cost is. Is it cheaper to hook onto the public sewer versus fix my septic system? And a lot of times they take the cheaper option, which they should have the option to do that then.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else to add before we take public comment? Dick, anything else from you? No?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I want to add something, Mr. Mayor. Before the meeting, we were having a discussion, the mayor and I were about how, first of all, it kind of started back with Councilman McKinney asked us to review these, our sewer fees per acre, and we were looking at this, and but we had an interesting conversation before to say, what percentage are we participating in this? Because, it's changed over years. It used to be assessment for arterial roads, and now we pretty much take 100% of it. So one of the things we're going to delay this for is look at how these are funded and maybe to look at how the properties who are adamantly opposed to this, where that works in the property. And if we look at a different funding formula, we try to arrive at a different approach. So that's another thing we would be working on until the next hearing. And I think we should do that for all of our sewer districts. Of course, not just this one, but that would have a big impact on for all the districts, but it may change how we view this area also.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, so to
Thank you, Brian.
summarize, you don't have to pay unless you hook up. You're not going to be forced to annex. We've never done an involuntary annexation that I can ever recall. And so we're happy to open it up for public comment. What we'd ask you to do is we need you to come to the podium and share your name and your address. We'd appreciate it if people don't repeat what other people have said, but come up, share your comments, your questions, your concerns. Let's see if we can get them addressed tonight or how best to go about it. I don't think anybody wants to take any action until people are comfortable that everybody's gotten the information, everybody understands the implications of this before we go any farther. But we're happy to hear you because you're all here tonight. So we'll just ask you to come up one at a time. Okay, you want to come up first? All right, sure.
Thank you.
I am a resident of Madison County. My name is Sharon Rosenberg. My address is 1183 Vintage Avenue, Cumming, Iowa. I want to know how much of the original 2010 connection fee district now has sewer. That's on this map.
Okay.
To the north of our
Okay.
proposed area.
Okay. I don't know if
Are
we
we
need to
gonna-
research that or if someone can answer that question tonight.
Yeah, Brian Hemmeseth, city engineer, that's something that we can easily provide. We have all the sewers that have been constructed that are fee district sewers.
Okay.
And we can provide a map to show that.
So Sharon, make sure they have your contact information on how you prefer to be contacted to give you that information. Would you make sure? Do we have
Ryan, can you get a
yeah.
pad and paper down there?
I do.
What's
Do you
that?
have it, Dick? Okay.
Next.
Who wants to volunteer next? Okay, if you
just come up.
Yep.
My name's Dawn Archer, and I live at 3195 Cumming Road, Cumming, Iowa. And I'm opposed to your sewer connection fee district. Your paperwork, your first letter on April 8th or 9th was all maybes and might be's. And then we receive another letter on the dated April 23rd regarding this public hearing, which had a bunch of numbers. It also had the $6,676 per acre to connect. Big question, nothing was actually explained. You have sense, your engineer has, that because we didn't have any idea what you wanted. 10 acres, $66,000. It was, of course, not clear. There was also the added property owner will be deemed to waive all objections unless objections were made at the hearing or in writing prior. Your rights should not supersede mine, and that's what I got from that, is that anything I thought you didn't care about unless I was on top of this, and thank God we happened to be. Because you could have came in, passed it, and it wouldn't have made any difference. I also called county supervisors who were unaware of any of this. And then you're going to have to give me in writing everything your engineer has said, because it's all been told to us, it's all volunteer. Oh, except if your septic system fails. Then Madison County will tell you you have to connect to your sewer. That's something that's also been said. So to me, that's forced annexation. I didn't vote for any of you people. You weren't on my ballot. So I'm feeling like I'm getting pushed into something from people that I don't know you. I never voted for you. So why do you get to tell me what happens at my property? It's just not right. So I kind of feel like I'm being forced into West Des Moines taxation.
So hopefully we've clarified tonight, Dawn, that you don't have to hook on, that you're not going to be forced to annex in. If you wanted to hook on, you need to be part of the city. So
Right.
that's again, one of the, we obviously understood there was miscommunication. That's one reason we were going to suggest we have another meeting, but you guys wanted to be heard tonight, so.
Well, I think
hopefully
it's
we can-
important you hear
Yeah.
us first.
No, I
So
agree.
you can answer all of our questions, because what we have for information is very little, and we're being forced into something that apparently none of us want.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you, Don.
Could you quick, unmute Supervisor Stansel from Madison County? I think she's on the call, but she was wanting to make a comment, was hoping to be unmuted.
She's got to unmute
what-
herself.
it's a star six.
Star six.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, Supervisor Stan, I think if you hit *6, you can be unmuted.
You guys hear?
Yes.
Yes,
Can you guys hear me now?
we
Yes.
can, yes.
Okay. Hi, this is Heather Stansel, Madison County Supervisor. I'm actually on vacation in Virginia, so I was advised that this meeting was going on, and someone wanted me to call in to get some clarification. I can't speak to what was said before I called in, so I apologize if I'm speaking in ignorance here, but I know I talked to you gentlemen there in West Des Moines, and perhaps there was some misunderstanding. However, we did not get a heads up as county supervisors that was going on. I did not find out about this until I got contacted by a resident who sent me copies of the letters. So, which of course I reached out to you guys, and you were very helpful explaining that. And then I forwarded the city attorney's letters to these residents. However, I do not know who was impacted in this project. I have no idea who you sent letters to. So if there was a belief that I would contact everybody, then that was incorrect. Because again, supervisors have no control over this project under Iowa code. So if there was a misunderstanding that there was an expectation that we follow up with everybody that's impacted, that is incorrect. So I just wanted to put that out there and get clarification as to that. And I think your explanation now in this meeting is pretty much matches how you explained it to me and in your follow-up letters. However, I do agree with the previous speaker that it would have been much more helpful and probably softened the issue in this meeting if better explanations were given, and maybe we can talk about how to better do that in the future. But that's probably not something we should have to do now. I just wanted to let you folks know, and if anybody had any questions for me, this isn't my meeting, but I just kind of wanted to put it out there.
Sure, no, we appreciate you.
That's all I had to say.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you calling in.
Thank you.
Have a safe trip.
Thank you.
So, thanks.
Yes.
Hi, go
Hi.
ahead. I'm Holly Reed. I'm at 1211 Valley View Court in Cumming, Iowa. I was one of the emails that sent today, but I just wanted to, I guess, echo the previous comments. I think we have a lot of questions yet that are not answered. So, you know, we say here it's about $32 million. So where is that coming from as far as taxpayers go? What county does that come from? How will that get funded in the future? So that's one of my questions. And I propose that maybe could there be another property owner meeting that we can ask some more of these questions to have more of a dialogue versus this format. So that might be one of my recommendations. We would appreciate that, I know.
Yep.
And there's several of our neighbors who are not able to attend tonight who would also appreciate that.
Yep.
And then I guess the other thing is just questioning the necessity of it. We moved into a development that we built our own house on. They're 4 to 10 acres, and we all just put in new septic systems. So to us, you know, there's probably 40 acres right there that don't even need it. So if you drive in that area and you kind of see what's out there, it's all very rural. I know you mentioned developers and maybe some interest out there. I'm just wondering where that could be proposed, because the way it's developed right now is not really allowing for much of that. We're one of the newer developments, and it's all very much acreages. So that would be my other question for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, Cindy Fluellen, 3191 Cumming Road. I'd like to add additional names to the petition, and I'd like to make it very clear that those were objections, not just a petition.
Okay, and Cindy, would that be the one that was, I think there are 28 names on here, or those additional?
That is correct, those are additional.
Okay, so I want to make sure anybody that's here that's not, that didn't sign the petition originally or isn't on the list that Cindy just gave us, make sure that you get your name on here. And Tom, I guess I'll give this to you. And anybody that's not on here, or anybody that's not on the one that Cindy passed up, make sure you get your name on there.
And I just want to make it clear, Stephen, can you actually confirm that those are actually considered as objections?
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so I would like to start in your own words, because you gave us words. Not good ones, but you gave us words. The proposed expanded fee district extends beyond our corporate boundaries of the city of West Des Moines.
Hold on.
Please,
Yeah.
quiet.
Sorry, Cindy.
Yeah, if folks want to talk, they should probably go out of the council chambers so we can hear the folks that are up here.
Therefore, properties within the fee district located outside of the corporate boundaries of the city will be required to either annex to the city or negotiate agreement with the city before sanitary sewer services can be obtained. You're under your jurisdiction, gentlemen. I'm going to start with that. I understand the boundaries. I understand the 2 miles. I'd like to start with the public notices. I did actually receive the information from Richard that went to our supervisors. They are not exactly what you just outlined, gentlemen, and words matter. They have to be clear, concise, transparent, so my cohorts here from West Des Moines can understand and object appropriately. When we really look at this, I think the things that have come to mind is about cost, taxation. And did we vote for you? No, we did not. This gentleman has a solution, looking for a problem. 6676 is the number. It's 2021, is it not? In 2027, in your records, it was just $3,000 per acre, maybe a little change there. I'd like to understand if you're building this in wood, or why it would actually almost double in cost per acre, based on your previous records, 2017. There is a complete, is this cost recovery? Do you really have this baked out? Is this a true methodology, or is it old and antiquated ways of actually looking at how you tax people? Answers are needed. You'll have your time to do your due diligence. We've done ours. I also want to actually point out, we are not Raccoon River Basin. So when we talk about topography, we're talking about the Badger Creek watershed. It's a precious resource. It's unique. We need to be careful that we do not damage it. There needs to be some type of DNR, Iowa Public, somebody, conservation, coming in and making sure that that is not ruined. I just want to make sure that my objection's on record. Environmental concerns are also taken care of, along with the budget, the boundary lines. Every time I look at a map and how someone can send a map out without even having the new Veterans Memorial Parkway on it, kind of shocks me. It's not hard to get information today, gentlemen and ladies. There might be more on the phone. You're welcome. But I want to make sure that everybody is actually looking at this fairly, and these lines seem to move. This now reaches down past G14 where it turns, almost down to Hollow Tree Farm on the opposite side. It doesn't have that in your comprehensive plan. I don't even understand your comprehensive plan because it's generals. You get to move your lines when it's convenient, or when a developer needs it, or when you need tax money. There's no reason to not put your boundaries on. We have our boundaries, we have our property lines. That's all I have to say today. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Hi there, Tom Miller, 3175 Cumming Road, Cumming, Iowa, Madison County. A couple questions on, the first one's that $6,676 assessment. Supposed to be for, doesn't matter if you have 1 acre or 10 acres. I happen to own 3 pieces of property. They all are contiguous. There's 3 separate abstracts and titles. So do I pay $66.76 for all 3 of them, or do I pay $66.76 for each one of my 3 pieces of ground that form my properties, which would make my assessment now $20,000, not $66.76?
Brian, can you address that?
Are you hooking more than one residence up?
No. Okay, so the other, even though you're gonna, okay, then where exactly will these sewers go through our property? I mean, I guess I'm going back to, no offense, but you never cared about us before. When we needed, or when water was proposed to us, it didn't come from West Des Moines, the closest thing we have as far as the city. We get our water now from Indianola, from the Warren water system. I mean, where were you for that? I mean, it's kind of like you didn't care about us until, I went back and I was reading in the paper today, the Des Moines Register article in 2016, when they proposed that eyesore out on I-35, that Microsoft data center. And I'm sorry, but it's an eyesore. I mean, this is their 3rd one in your city. And in order for them to move here, it's my understanding that you guys have to match the state rebate of what, 47 million, but you propose to give Microsoft 65 million of tax incentives, is that correct? That's according to the Des Moines Register?
There's different development.
There's 4 phases, I understand, yes.
But I will say generally, Microsoft is paying taxes, and some of those taxes are going back into infrastructure that are beneficial to both Microsoft and the city.
But
the value of Microsoft and the taxes that it produces everybody else's, or keeps everybody else's taxes low. So it's not a giveaway to Microsoft. In fact, what they're producing is being used for infrastructure. So
what Microsoft is producing is 57 jobs after phase 1. On a $200 million or 200 acre slab of land that you guys put a road through from people that own that property for over 100 years, and they didn't have any choice when you ran that road through. Now coming up, as I leave my house to come up here every day, I see where we're having high power lines cut across our property, also feeding Microsoft. I mean, this is all really about Microsoft, and it looks to me like this proposed annexation for sewer is just, and I did hear that gentleman say, a proposal for annexing our property into the city of West Des Moines eventually. And we've already been down that road once. And
you can't use our sewer unless you're in our city. And we're not going to force you to come into our city.
No, you can force annex us. You tried to do it before. You called it a voluntary based on the amount of land that was on, not the number of people that were opposed to it, but the amount of land. So if you get developers like Hubble and you get developers like Knapp who own huge amounts of ground, they're going to outvote us every time. And like the lady said, there's nobody out here now that doesn't have a sewer or septic. You know, we get nothing for you guys bringing sewer into us. Especially all these poor new people that have been building out there. They just got new septics, and now you're proposing, we're going to run the sewer line across your property, whether you're going to use it or not.
They don't know that it's going across your property, so it's just coming
No, it's going across my property. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in this meeting, right? Are you going to put it in the ditches or are you going to put it on our property? Where's the sewer going to go? Somebody?
You can ask Ms. Moines. I don't know that we can actually tell you where it's going to go right now.
But it's not going to go in the county ditch. It's going to go on somebody's property, right?
Bob, can you address that? Bob Veenstra?
If he's not, I can.
The
Okay.
sewers that are included in the fee district are the major trunk sewers that generally follow along the various water courses. And they provide sort of the backbone for sewer. The connection fee does not involve all the individual sewers that would run to serve every house. They serve, what we're trying to do is to put sort of like a major network of sewers. And those are conceptually laid out and they generally follow, the lay of the land along the lower creek, the creeks and draws. Then at some future date, there may be a more additional sewers that would run to individual lots and houses and acreages. So we're not, a part of this fee is not proposing to build at some point in the future all of the sewers that would serve the area. It's the lift station and the major trunk sewers, not going to individual properties. So at this point, we don't know where those sewers beyond the major trunk sewers that are part of the sewers that are funded by the connection fee are going to be located. There's a map that shows where those major sewers are located. I'm sure it can be shared if it hasn't been with all of the property owners in that area.
And that wasn't sent to us, right?
It wasn't. We can send.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
My name's Eric Canoyer. I'm at 1270 Upland Lane on what presumed was a dead end for many, many years since I grew up out there since 1976, which is no longer a dead end road, still has a dead end sign on it. But my point is, on this expansion that you have on here, this, it looks like some third grader had kind of put this together. Do you have, by chance, anything detailed, addresses, exactly where you guys presuming where you want this to go and where you're presuming to want to annex people from out in the country to be in your city?
Brian, can you address it?
Anybody? Brian Hemmes, city engineer. I guess I'm not quite understanding your question. I'm sorry.
My question, you sent a map out. Do you see any addresses on there by chance?
No, sir.
Do you see some of the roads you can't even make out? Do you see any property lines on there?
No, sir. We can provide that to you.
Is this something that you're wanting to annex and become in West Des Moines down here on the bottom? Because exactly what you state in here, the proposed expansion fee district extends beyond the corporate boundaries of the city of West Des Moines. Therefore, properties within the fee district located outside the corporate boundaries of the city will be required to either annex into the city or negotiate an agreement with the city before sanitary service can be obtained. So are you trying to annex before you put the sewer line in out there?
No. I think the intent, Mr. Canoyer, you're sitting here tonight, we have an annexation here with Van Meter. We have one with Waukee. We have one with Cumming. We have one with Norwalk. And I think what that suggests is based on the annexation line with Cumming, the land that you're looking at could eventually come into West Des Moines and not Cumming because of the agreement where the topography is. So there's no present intent to do any of the annexations. I think it takes into account the annexation boundaries that the cities have negotiated based on who can get infrastructure to people. And so when it references outside the corporate limits of West Des Moines, it's outside our current line, but it's in the area that could annex into West Des Moines at some point because Cumming acknowledged that they couldn't get services to it. But there's no present intention to do any of those annexations.
And it's also saying, though, in that sentence, that in order to hook to the sewer, you have to either be in the city of West Des Moines or negotiate an agreement to connect to our sewer if you're outside of the city. So it's not a means
the
to
way
get you to annex in. It's just saying that that's the
Read it.
only way you would be able to connect to the sewer would be one of those two ways.
So we can actually tell you that we don't want you annexing our land and everything, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I can understand what you're saying.
Because, I mean, that's the way I'm reading that last paragraph, that you have to be in corporate boundaries of the city, you'll be required to either annex to the city. I can tell you right now,
To the sewer,
99% of the people in here do not want to be annexed in West Des Moines.
No, that's fine, and I can share where that's come up before, is we've had people whose septic systems have failed, and it was gonna be cheaper to hook onto the city sewer. So they came to us and said, we'd like to hook on the city sewer, and we said, you're not part of the city of West Des Moines. If you wanna hook on, then you need to annex. And they annexed because they wanted to be part of the public sewer. So some of it's a protection that this, this is a two-way relationship. But we have had people who've wanted to annex because they didn't want to spend the money on a new septic system, or they said it made their land more valuable. We said, that's fine, but you need to voluntarily come into our city then to hook onto our services. So that's the way it works. I'm sorry the way it's apparently written in there for you guys, but
It's not an intent to force you in,
no.
though.
Well, if you want to come down that direction, I can tell you this right now, you need to have a more detailed map.
Yep.
When you get together with a group of people that live out in the country.
Yep.
And because we're not gonna lay down for just coming right into
Right.
the West Des Moines. I can tell you that right now.
Yep, we
Very
got it.
good feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Pat Richter, 1176 Vintage Avenue. Part of what I have read into this is I'm not sure that the council has an understanding of that area of Madison County. The properties, Madison County already has minimum lot sizes that are well beyond what are residential lots here in West Des Moines. Nobody really has the opportunity right now to subdivide. So your customer base is basically the people that already live there now. And I'm not sure, listening to Mr. Veenstra's explanation of how the costs are being recovered, where it is, I believe he said, being divided over the total acres in the area. And now you're saying, well, no, it's only 1 acre per property. Most of them are 5-acre properties. So your revenue is down to 20% of what you thought you were gonna get. So it doesn't seem like this has been well thought through, along with the claims that have been made of the information just not being clear. It wasn't well presented, and it appears a lot of work needs to be done to get that cleaned up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
My name's Randy Golightly, and I live on 1039 Badger Creek Road, Van Meter. I'm representing my mother, myself, we got 2 brothers and a sister, and we all farm. We have large acreage out there that farm in that area. We're got a great way of life, good living out there. We don't like to see a lot of changes. We're not looking for development. We don't want sewer systems out there. We don't need your sewer systems out there. We've got great churches, we got great schools, we got great communities, and we just don't need all these, I guess I'd call them headaches. We don't need any rules, any more regulations. Things are going great in the community. And we just soon that West Des Moines stay home. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Randy, I have to ask you if your brother's on the Dallas County Supervisors.
Yes.
You look like him. Oh, I recognize you. Yeah, no, it's good. We've worked with him on a lot of stuff in Dallas County. So,
That's great.
yeah, okay, your name,
I'll go
please.
with both names for you. Timothy Jason Armstrong, 1072 Upland. What am I, fourth generation in the Badger Creek watershed area. Done a lot with the conservation practices, built terraces, waterways, everything else in there. I stayed in that area because that's home. That's where I grew up. We don't want this stuff. We're all happy with what we got. We don't need sewer and people being up your back door, basically. We want to stay rural. That's where we're at. I don't know about some of these folks, but I know from myself, I can't afford to hook onto it and even think about that or have that assessed to me. That's going to drive me out of the area and I'm gone. I don't know where I'm going to go, but I'm gone. We can't afford that. So.
Well, and again, it's only if you would hook to it. There's nothing that
Agreed.
says you have to. So again, if you've got a septic tank, you're either gonna have to maintain your septic tank or hook to the sewer. So I just want to make sure that everybody
Agreed,
understands
and
that. It's not an assessment that we're gonna
Right.
force it.
I agree. Now, who gets to judge that? Who judges when? And
Madison
also,
County.
who judges where do all these go? Are they going through my property? When you go to take your sewer line up through there, my 3-acre patch, if you go through there, you're gonna take my house and everything that I own.
And that wouldn't happen. We wouldn't do that.
So we need justification on that. Thank you.
Understand. Thank you.
Timothy.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, my name is Nick Critelli, 317 6th Avenue, Des Moines. I'm a lawyer for some of the people that you've heard from tonight. First of all, I want to thank you for giving these folks an opportunity to express their concern. And I think we all learned from them that we've got a PR problem. I understand what your needs are to expand the sewer, and I understand what the future plan is. I hope now that you understand what their concern is. First of all, the rollout of this project left a little bit to be desired. For example, you're home one day, you get this notice, and you read it. And it says in plain English, $6,676 per acre through June 30th of 2022, and then it can go up, and it can go up each year thereafter. Now, Mr. Archer back here has got 100 acres. He does quick math and says, what is West Des Moines doing to me? Now, I've known Mr. Szynski for a while. He says that's not what this means. Well, we understand that, with clarification, and there's been a lot of learning tonight. Okay, I don't know if there's any consensus tonight, but there's certainly been a lot of learning, okay, that we can dispel some of this. But what you write does count. So ultimately, these folks have this question. Why now and why there? We understand this to be part of your strategic annexation future program. We don't know what you're going to do in the future, but if you're going to annex in the future, you want to have the sewer available. We also know that it's a lot easier to annex in the future if the sewer is available. And you gather they don't want to be annexed, and they're going to fight annexation any way you want. So they look at this and they go, this is part of a strategy. But what was interesting tonight, and what they've been saying to me, and something that you really can't overlook, is that they didn't vote for you. You don't represent them. Okay? But you are in a major manner affecting them. They look at it and you'll hear terms like taxation without representation. Maybe this would be easier if you were their city council, and I agree. They don't have to sign up, and they don't have to pay unless you sign up, unless you annex them, unless the DNR says this, and unless this, unless that. Uncertainty, uncertainty, uncertainty. Pointing out to this, you got to go back to the drawing board on this. There's more due diligence that has to be done. If this is consistent with your plan with regard to the other communities, and I've read that plan, I understand where you're coming from with Cummings and the other utilities in the area. You got to go back to the drawing board. What that gentleman said with respect to the map is absolutely correct. You cannot tell what these boundaries are. Now, so what does that have to do with anything? Well, quite frankly, folks, if this is the quality of the workup in this case, how are we going to have any confidence whatsoever that this project is as you say it is? So I talked with Mr. Szynski, and we agreed that this thing needs to be tabled. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of information that needs to go out to these people. Okay? Because the way the paperwork stands now, this is not acceptable. It's not acceptable to you, because you've told us that. And it sure as heck's not acceptable to them. So thank you for the opportunity to hear them. They needed to vent.
Yes, they did.
Particularly given the fact that you're not their counsel. And particularly given the fact that the Madison County Board of Supervisors in Warren County apparently have not been engaged. And the supervisor said, this isn't their jurisdiction. They don't have control over this type of thing. But these are their constituents, and these are their taxpayers. These people want to get along, but they don't want to be tread on. And that's the impression that they have. And I know that's not your intent, because I know most of you. So, any questions of me and Mike?
No, I think when we're done, we're going to leave the public hearing open, and obviously we need to have a lot more meetings, so we'll do that. So I'm not going to close the public hearing. So no one's, if someone else comes later and wants to raise an objection, you're not barred, because I'm going to leave the public hearing open until we get further down the process. So I want people to feel comfortable, not only that if you're here and you didn't speak tonight, you're still going to have another opportunity after we go through all this. And if somebody's not here that wants to speak after more information is provided, we'll take those public comments before we actually do close the public hearing. So I don't want anybody leaving here tonight thinking that you can't speak again when it comes, if eventually comes back here. We'll just keep the record open.
I do suggest, Mr. Mayor, that we don't say it's going to continue to June 7th, because there is a lot of work to be done and reviewed, and it's not going to be done by June 7th.
Can we just say continued indefinitely then?
Would probably be
Then we need
wise,
to
Mr.
renotice.
Councilman. I guess there's this
I might
whole-
just add on that point, though, we'd have to renotice everything. That's 90 people. It'd be better to take it to June 7th and then continue it again, just for the noticing. I mean, that's because once you indefinitely continue it, then nobody is aware of when that is until we provide further notice. So from a logistical point of view, it's very difficult.
Okay, well, just so then that staff understands that June 7th, and everybody in the audience, that if we do have to do that to continue it to June 7th, that isn't the drop dead date. That's in order for the noticing and everything, but expect this to be continued until we get this figured out and everybody's understanding what this is all
You could pick a
about.
date in the future, but as long as it's definite and everybody's aware of that now, that would be sufficient.
What if we picked a date a year from today?
Because I don't
Fine with
think,
that.
I think it's worth noticing everybody to send them a notice and give us the time. I don't know for sure what time it'll take. And it also impacts our sewer district rates. So I'd almost rather, Dick, I know it's
well,
hard to
that's
notice,
fine.
but say it's not going to happen, the 7th
Your
or
point,
the.
there's also a concern about the end of the session, and then everything we have to start over, so a year would be too long. So if you want to just continue it indefinitely, and we'll renotice.
And we can renotice and we can provide better information in case one of those 90 people couldn't come to
Right.
one of these meetings.
That would be wise, Mr. Mayor. A lot of due diligence needs to be done, and that time is just too short.
Right. I just want to make sure everybody understands
Right.
what's going on.
And it seems to me that we can figure out how we best come up with future dates to have future meetings. But obviously with the Madison County supervisors and most of these folks from Madison County, it seems like the public meetings we have ought to be down at the supervisors' offices in Madison County. It's easier
Right.
for these folks to get to them. Then if the Madison County people want to be there, the septic system people can be there. We'll have access to all the other people that we need to have access to so that we can have these meetings at the supervisors' facilities in Madison County, not here.
That makes sense to me.
Confer with them and make sure that everybody's on board and do that.
But I think that's a good point that the Madison County County Sanitarian is involved with this too, so that he or she can answer any questions that you guys might have at that time.
So they understand we continue this indefinitely. It's not coming back here until you all get notice again. We're not going to send out notice again until we've had all these meetings and we have a lot better sense of what we're doing, what people's thoughts are on it. So again, I don't want anyone to feel like there's going to be a fast one pulled over on you, because it's not. Everyone's going to get notice again before it ever comes back here. And from the sounds of it, it's going to be a while.
Could I ask, if we're going to have an informational meeting, how would you like to notice that? Do you have a couple of points of contact, or we send out a letter to everybody, or?
Why wouldn't we notify all 90 people
Yes,
that are in the
notify
district?
everybody that was notified this time.
All right.
I think
All right, just asking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Notify everybody there in Lee Township, anybody that's going to be. Yeah, Lee and Jefferson, that's going to involve everybody, but not just everybody that's in here tonight. I think you need to involve everybody in the townships.
No, well, I believe that's what we did with the 90 residents.
Yes.
Everybody that was everybody that was shown on the auditor's books was notified. And I know there was a couple of people said, hey, you didn't get everybody, or these people have moved or whatever, but everybody that's in the district did hopefully receive a notice. At least that was our attempt. So that's what we'll do again.
Well, for
Anybody that owns property in the proposed district is supposed to get a notice.
So let's make sure for this meeting, let's fix that for the meeting that we're gonna have going forward. Let's fix that so that everybody does get notified and that the county supervisors are all notified of it. And like I said, the county sanitarian, so they all know the date, time, and place. And I think the mayor makes a good point. Have it down in Madison County Supervisors facility so that you guys aren't driving for 45 minutes up here.
We could contact somebody. Does somebody have information that we are not aware of as far as people that we didn't get?
I didn't hear.
We're on it.
Can you make sure that you get on this list then tonight, and anybody that you know of, even going forward, get a hold of our city attorney or city engineer and make sure that they get added to that list?
Yeah, that petition actually would be helpful if you sign the petition, because it's got names and addresses on it.
No.
So it sounds like the right motion that we need is to continue this indefinitely, to put a notice out about a public meeting with additional information to be coordinated with the Madison County supervisors at their facility at a date in the future, but we're going to work through the public process. And at some point, we get through that. If it needs to come back here, you'll get re-noticed, and we'll come back and reopen the public hearing for further comments, so people aren't barred just by what was said tonight.
Right.
So moved.
I'll make that motion that we continue this indefinitely, making sure that everyone is notified, as I said, the county officials, and we have it down in Madison County.
I second that motion.
Okay. Nick, thank you for coming. Appreciate
Thank
Yeah, Nick.
your description of the issue and certainly understand where everybody's coming from.
And for everybody in the audience, everybody who came up here tonight, I think that our communication has not been tops, and I want to really apologize for that. I think all of us feel that way up here. What Nick said about us all getting educated tonight, us all learning a lot tonight, I think that's exactly what happened. And I just want to let you know that I am really, really grateful for your comments. And I don't think any of us would ever want to pull the wool over anyone's eyes,
No.
especially when it comes to timelines and meetings and getting dates. So as in you get a letter, a notice in the mail one day, and then the meeting, the city council meeting is 2 days, 3 days down the line, and we don't officially represent you as well. And so I think all of us up here are sensitive to that, and we want to make sure that any trust that has been lost. Again, my sincerest apologies. We would very much like to regain the trust and demonstrate that nothing is an inevitability. And it might feel that way, but nothing is an inevitability. And just the fact that you all are here tonight, I really wanted to thank you. And I appreciate you waiting for us to get through a bunch of other business too. I'm really, really grateful for your patience, really, really grateful for your time that you made your way up here. Thank you very much.
I'd like to also weigh in before you all take off, because I think we're going to have an empty house when this meeting is over. I think you guys want to eat dinner. Okay. I want to say, I started off the meeting indicating that you guys were here and you needed to be heard. And I really appreciate that you spoke up. You were painfully honest, but we needed to listen. And as a public servant, that is what our role is. It is to listen and to hear. I learned so much more about sewer stuff just tonight in one meeting. So I want to thank you for the learning opportunity. I want to thank you for sharing your thoughts and feelings, because this is how things should work. Voices to be heard and decisions to be made. So I don't know any of you, but I do know this. You took the time because you care about your own home and your own situation, and you voiced it, and I hope that you felt listened to. So I thank you.
Okay, so the motion to continue this indefinitely and to have meetings down in the Madison County Supervisors facilities has been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Also, I guess, Tom, since this came through the Public Services Council Committee, I think it needs to come back through there as we have these conversations, but to talk about this general benefit issue, because from what I heard Mr. Veenster say, these are major trunk sewers. It just seems like there's a general benefit to the whole community. So why we're having meetings with, I mean, that applies to all of our districts in the future as well. So let's make sure that we keep that issue on the forefront as we proceed on to share information, so.
And I know we already said this, but I think Eric, is that your name? Eric, whenever we send out anything to the residents, make sure they're as specific as possible with quality maps that are just zoomed in to the appropriate extent, because that was.
Addresses would help.
Yes.
Yep. I can tell you right now, that sewer system coming through there, our land is way too hilly, you don't want to put it in there, trust me. It would just look like it is.
Okay. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night. Give it a moment here. I think we're going to be down to only 3 people. Man.
Thank you all again. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's go up. Yeah. I'm just gonna make sure I don't have a public hearing coming up. I've got 2, 4, I've got 5 in a row, so I'll talk to you for
Oh, thank you, Tim.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thanks for speaking.
Okay, item 6I, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider the conveyance of property comprising approximately .404 acres located at 301 Grand Avenue to Wendy's West Maple LLC, initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
May 12th, 2021 in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the City Council on item 6I. Okay, seeing no one and hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. This is the conveyance of the former Rasmussen Bike Shop to Wendy's to relocate for that project down there. I think we talked about this a couple meetings.
It was last meeting.
Yeah. Okay, so it's a resolution to approve the conveyance of property.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any additional questions or comments?
It seems like the Wendy's discussion will not be as long as the prior discussion.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The conveyance is approved. 6J, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider the 2021 fiscal year operating and capital budget amendment number 3 initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
April 30th, 2021 in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the city council on item 6J. Okay, seeing no one and hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. This came through Finance and Administration Council Committee, and I believe Russ has reported on some of these items in his council update.
Yes.
Approval.
Second.
Any other questions or comments?
Mayor, I'll just say there's several items related to the conduit in there, and while it's not in the letter we received, I'm going to be abstaining from this for the reasons I have throughout.
Okay, all in favor of approving budget amendment number 3, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And we'll show Matt abstaining for those reasons.
Thank you.
6K, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider Boonville Road, South 100th Street to South 115th Street, initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
May 7th, 2021 in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the city council on item 6K. All right, hearing no one and seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. We can take both resolutions and a motion together, and this came through the Public Services Council Committee with a recommendation to approve.
Move approval.
Second.
Questions or comments?
I'd say this also includes quite a bit of conduit, and so I've abstained to the public services. I'll abstain on this.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And we'll show Matt abstaining. Item 6L, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider Grand Avenue West Segment 5B and 7A sewers, initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
May 7th, 2021 in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the city council on item 6L. Seeing no one and hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. We have 2 resolutions and a motion which we can take together. And even though the bid was a bit higher than the estimate, the recommendation from staff and Public Services City Council Committee is to award it.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Those matters are approved. Item 6M, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider West Grand Business Park, Boonville Road to Grand Avenue, initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date that the notice was published?
May 7th, 2021 in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the city council on item 6M. Okay, seeing no one and hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Again, we have 2 resolutions and a motion which we can take together, and the Public Services Council Committee's recommended approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Those items are approved. Item 6N, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider Digital Enterprise Conduit Deployment Segment 3, Phase 2, initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
May 7th, 2021 in the Des Moines
Have you
Register.
received any written comments?
There was the one letter referenced at the beginning of the meeting.
Mediacom
from
letter, May
Mediacom, yes.
17th, yep. Okay. Now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the city council on item 6N. All right, seeing no one and hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and this came through Public Services Council Committee with a recommendation to approve.
Move approval.
Second. Other questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we'll show Matt abstaining on 6N.
Thank you.
6O, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider Digital Enterprise Conduit Deployment Segment 5, Phase 3, Raccoon River Crossing, initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
May 7th, 2021 in the Des Moines Register.
Received any written comments?
Just the one letter from Mediacom.
Okay, now would be the time for anyone in the audience that would like to address the city council on item 6O. Seeing no one and hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. And again, this came through Public Services Council Committee with a recommendation to approve.
Move for approval.
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we'll show Matt abstaining on 6-0.
Thank you.
6P, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider Valley View Park North Loop Road Extension Project initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
May 7th, 2021, in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
Right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the City Council on item 6P. Okay, hearing no one and seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Again, we have two resolutions and a motion which we can take together, and the recommendation is not to include any of the alternatives that were bid.
Move for approval.
Second.
Questions or comments?
Sally, I had a quick question. Is this entire green area on the map, is that the entirety of city-owned Valley View Park?
Sally Ortiz, Director of Parks and Recreation. Yes, it is.
And is the goal to connect this eventually through up to Beech Tree?
Yes, that's correct.
And there's right over that, there's that mound area that children do like to sled on during the hill. Will we like cut right through that
We
eventually?
will. Yeah, we're going to move some of that to the south side and keep some sort of mound so that sledding could continue. But some of it will
I know it's a
need to
random
be-
question here and as we approach summer, but as I was looking through, I was wondering if there would still be a sledding hill available for the children and
That is
some
the
council
plan.
members who like to do that too. So,
You young guys go right ahead.
And we may even improve it and make it even better for sledding.
ooh, that sounds dynamite. Thank you very much.
And in the summer, maybe we can make it a dirt bike track.
People might do that on their own.
Okay, all in favor of 6P 1, 2, and 3, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that item is approved, or those items are approved. 6Q, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider the 2021 court improvements initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
May 7th, 2021, in the Des Moines Register.
Received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now be the time for anyone in the audience that would like to address the City Council on item 6Q. Okay, seeing no one and hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Again, we have two resolutions and a motion which we can take together.
So move.
Second.
Questions or comments?
I just got a question, just so it's for public record. Sally, these tennis courts are also being striped for pickleball, is that correct?
Sally Ortiz, Director of Parks and Recreation. Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Bill.
I knew they were, I just wanted to make sure that anybody out there listening knew that as well. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor of 6Q
Okay.
1, 2, and 3, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Those items are approved. Item 6R, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider the Crossroads Park Tennis Court lighting initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
May 7th, 2021, in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience that would like to address the City Council on item 6R. Okay, seeing no one and hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Again, two resolutions and a motion which we can take together. And the staff is recommending rejecting the alternative bid.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Those items are approved. Item 7, new business. Item 7A, 88th Street Lofts, 520 88th Street, approval of final plat to create one lot for high-density residential development, TWG WDM LP. This is a resolution to approve and release the final plat, and there are no outstanding issues. This also came through Development and Planning Council Committee.
I'd move approval.
Second.
All right. Any questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Those items are approved. Item 7B, First National Bank, 301 Fifth Street. Approved site plan. Hold on. Yeah, First National Bank, 301 Fifth Street. Approve of site plan to allow construction of a new bank building, First National Bank. It's a resolution to approve the site plan. And also, I believe that we were provided tonight on the dais a petition of business or property owners located in close proximity to the First National Bank project at 301 Fifth Street in the historic Valley Junction neighborhood. We have reviewed the site plan drawings for the proposed new building and believe it will be a welcome addition to the neighborhood. So that petition will be made part of the public documents for this item. And I know that this came through planning and zoning with a 6-0 recommendation. But I know I see Dean here and I see some of our residents here. So if there's anyone that wants to share any comments with the council on 7B, now would be the time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you. My name's Ralph Haskins from 729 Fifth Street, and I'm assuming this is just the site plan. Councilman Trevelyan, maybe you can elaborate on what's occurred today with the bank.
Yeah, Friday evening, myself, several residents, business owners, Valley Junction Foundation representatives, Councilwoman Hardman and Councilman Trimble walked to the area down there to talk about the entire district, specifically though the 300 block. One thing that came out of that meeting was on the south side of the bank building, there was a desire to kind of break up that limestone coloring, the yellowish. Jason from First Bank was there on that walk as well. He showed us a little more of a detailed, I guess, site plan than what's on the sign down there. Ralph had expressed the concern as to whether or not the bank, talking with Jason, would be interested in making some darker, what he talked about was brick on that far south end. I contacted Dean Whitaker today, and he also had the conversation with Jason about it. And what Dean wrote back to me was that, brick really is not an option. They're not opposed to some darker components. And one thing that he did say is that proposing a recessed area that would be designed to relate to the windows near the southwest corner, although no windows would be included. I don't know if, I've got a picture of it that he sent me on my phone. I don't know if it's going to show up, but what it's basically saying is the bottom, 2/3, I guess, of the center of that right-hand picture that's on our in our packets would be this darker area to kind of break up. And he said they're fine to do that. There we go. That's it. Thank you.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
I don't know Lynn, if you can tell me if we approve this with these changes, but I think it's what the residents had requested. The bank seems to be fine with it. It's not going to be really an additional cost. It's just a little bit different material. So Ralph,
Yeah, well, I mean, we got the information about 2 o'clock,
Yep.
so none of my peers have had an opportunity to review it. But what it does do is it does bring some nice scaling into that side of the building, and it doesn't look like there's a big stone vault projecting out from the bank. And they're very receptive to wanting to support the neighborhood and support the organizations there. I thought it was really a positive thing that they're willing to do that. And they mentioned some other things there that weren't evident in the site plan in terms of some of the materials for the sidewalks and stuff that they're
Yeah,
gonna be
he
able
talks
to
about
integrate into it.
some
It's
planters
really
and
great.
stuff like that as well, so.
Well, I'll ask Dean or his representative to come up and share kind of what their thoughts are on it directly, just so we hear from them.
Right.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
To make the shift of what we see in the packet to what we see in the, with the red square
Yes.
right there, does that require a site plan change? And does that require any different actions to be taken this evening by council just to make that one switch that we see visualized on the screen above?
Lynn Tweet, Director of Development Services. Just when you make your motion would be that you are approving the proposed elevation that's been provided to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Matt Cohen. I'm with RDG Planning and Design, 301 Grand Avenue in Des Moines. We're pleased to be here representing First National Bank and very pleased to be working in the Valley Junction area as well, one of my favorite parts of the city. So a number of moves were made. I'll just do a quick overview of the overall design strategy of the project. As you all aware, there was a rather antiquated building on the site that had really moved beyond its useful life. It was unusual to the Valley Junction area because it was pushed back on the site and it was a little bit auto-centric. So we moved the building out to the corner to be more appropriate to the neighborhood. That also diminished the drive-through nature as well. There's also a rather large gesture on the left of the image that you see there, which opens up that corner to the intersection, which is consistent with the rest of the neighborhood, drawing inspiration from the corridor as well. We also wanted to try to find that balance between the turn of the century architecture that you see in the 100 block, and then that starts to scale down into a little bit more Art Deco in the 200 block, and then you're into mid-century modern in the 300 block. So it's actually a testament to the ongoing investment that's always happened in Valley Junction. It's really a great thing to see, and we're glad to be part of this next wave of investment happening there. The massing and scale was derived from that 16 to 25 foot bay spacing you see throughout the district, so we wanted to draw from that. And then the selection of materials really came from the example across the street with the historic First National Bank building on the opposite corner and a couple doors in. And that was a lighter color building. And incidentally, we just did a quick, this is almost anecdotal, but a quick Google search of images of historic bank buildings. I think it was 41 of the top 50 images were either limestone or a very light color within historic districts. So bringing in that light color was very intentional in that sense, and also was intended to really respond to a couple of the other buildings on the corridor as well, the historic Legion building, for instance, as well as several others. So again, very glad to be part of it. Happy to answer any questions that you might have. Grateful for the community for bringing up their concerns so we could tackle those and bring a good project
So
to Valley
Matt,
Junction.
highlight what we're seeing here. That was a change from what P&Z saw?
Yeah, so the change is really just where the red box is.
Okay.
So that was just a solid limestone wall.
Okay.
It is on Elm Street, the non-primary, but still a frontage.
Okay.
So I think that was a really good suggestion to break up that side of the building.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Anyone else want to share with the council on 7B? Okay, so it sounds like the right motion would be to approve it, subject to the recommendations that are here with the additional architectural change that Matt's shown us tonight.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any other questions or comments?
I just want to
I
thank,
just want to,
go ahead, Renee.
I just want to thank you for your willingness to be flexible and to listen and to receive comments about how folks would like to see that better blended in the area. So I applaud you for that. And I hope that on behalf of the citizens, they know that you are trying to be fair and meet in the middle and make adjustments. And that doesn't always happen, but it is happening. And I want to acknowledge that, and I want to say thank you very much.
Yes. So what I was going to say was I want to thank all of the residents that, and council members and whatnot that took part in that walking tour. I think it gave us a good, really good understanding of what this building is going to look like, especially those of us that saw the additional renderings that Jason showed us that night. And I want to thank Dean Whitaker. I know kind of a last minute, hey, here's what the residents want, and he's like, he's like I said, he said, we can't do the black brick because ABC, but we are willing to do this. So thank you very much. I want to say too that nobody at that night said, this building doesn't fit. It was more of, just like I said, how can we expand on, some of these things. So thank you for listening to what the residents want. Thank you for making the investment in Valley Junction. That building, for those of you that don't know, used to be a Casey's General Store. That's why it sat so far back in the lot, because it needed a parking lot up front. First Bank came in and made some major renovations to that, so it didn't look like a convenience store. But yes, it was time for it to be replaced, and I think you've got an excellent building here, and I look forward to seeing it in Valley Junction. So thank you, Dean.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thanks, Dean.
and I'll just briefly, Mayor, Ralph, thank you for the invite to be there last Friday. I'm sorry I couldn't be there on Friday evening, but it sounds like obviously it was productive, and appreciate the feedback you've provided throughout this. I participated in the planning and zoning meeting last Monday to get some, initial feedback on some of the designs. Dean, thank you for reaching out and being proactive throughout this process, and it sounds like we've gotten to a point where there's comfort across the spectrum, and you've got a fantastic investment in a terrific area of our community, so thank you.
Okay, all in favor of 7B, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the site plan is approved. Item 7C, lots 3 and 4, Allstate Industrial, 1690 and 1730 Allstate Court. Approval of site plan to allow construction of two-story warehouse buildings. Next Phase Development LLC. It's a resolution to approve the site plan. There are no outstanding issues, and there's one condition recommended for approval.
So moved.
And it looks like it did come through Planning and Development Council Committee as well.
Second.
Any other questions or comments on 7C? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? That site plan's approved. 7D, Triple J Logistics, 1800 Industrial Circle. Approval of a phased major modification to a site plan to allow footings, foundations, grading, and private utility construction. Triple J Logistics LLC, it's a resolution to approve the phased major modifications.
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? This also came through Development and Planning Council Committee with a recommendation to approve it. Okay, all in favor of 7D, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? 7D is approved. 7E, Cardinal Lofts, 435 South 88th Street. Approval of major modification to allow the addition of 2 8-bay detached garage buildings and future surface parking stalls. The Lofts at 88 LLC. Resolution to approve the major modifications. There are no outstanding issues, and recommendation is to approve it with one condition.
Move for approval.
Second.
Questions or comments?
No, this is just one of those small things that can be done to help out the residents, because these new garage buildings will be really helpful for those folks over in Ward 2 who want indoor parking during the winter. So proud to support this. I appreciate the city working to make this happen.
Okay, all in favor of 7E, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the major modification is approved. 7F, Des Moines Golf and Country Club, 1600 Jordan Creek Parkway. Approval of major modification to site plan to allow additions and renovations to the clubhouse. Des Moines Golf and Country Club, this is a resolution also to approve a major modification, and there are no outstanding issues and one condition of the recommended approval, and this came through Development and Planning Council Committee as well.
Move approval.
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That major modification is approved. 7G, Neff Properties, parcel 21-13, generally located at the northeast corner of Stagecoach Drive and future South 95th Street. Approval of plat of survey to transfer ownership, Jerry Bussimus. This is a resolution to approve and release the plat of survey, and there are no outstanding issues and 2 recommended conditions of approval. And this came through Development Planning Council Committee on 2 separate meetings with a recommendation to approve.
Move approval.
Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we approve and release that plat of survey. 7H, Valley Junction Mixed Use, 304 5th Street. This is being asked to be continued to one of the future council meetings. We're not sure if it's June 7th or June 21st, but it sounds like there's some additional conversations that are going to occur. This is going to come back through the Planning and Development Council Committee before it would come back to the City Council. So that we need a motion to defer consideration.
Don't need action.
I don't think there needs to be a motion on that.
It doesn't?
No.
Just, do we need a vote?
More of an
No, that was an item that was put on
Okay.
for
Because the
information purposes.
applicant requested it? Okay. Item 8, there are no items to receive, file, and/or refer. Item 9, other matters, is 9A, update number 1, Valley Junction City Council Workshop. I know that, I don't know if there's anything else the staff wants to add to the written update that we were provided? Nope. Okay, any of the residents here want to have any questions or comments? Ralph, you want to?
Thank you again.
Yep.
And I, kind of speaking for myself, but I visited with some members of our groups, and I maybe feel a little derailed by where we're at today than where we were at the last council meeting, when it seemed apparent that the council and the mayor had indicated that we would establish some working groups and the city would be in touch with us so we could start developing some ideas of a consensus for the historic Valley Junction area. They've moved ahead. They want to move into getting a consultant. And I think it's personally premature when we see the success that we could have working with the developer on a modest change, where we can be very effective by going through our 2016 Valley Junction Historic Master Plan that has a lot of stuff. And I don't know, speaking for the group, most of us, I think, developed a consensus that we liked a lot of those ideas that were presented, and that consultant at that time was very effective in communicating what Valley Junction needs. So we don't necessarily think we need, I think at some point we'll probably need a consultant, but to do it now is premature. And then the kind of, also when people reached out to city, again, I don't want to be negative here, we were looking for input, we were excited. And there was an immediacy on behalf of the city at that particular time in our last meeting that we had to get this done. So not to hear anything since then, or not to be contacted, and I don't believe Historic's been contacted, none of the merchants haven't been contacted, the association hasn't been contacted. So none of us have brought together because they have a different direction that they want to follow. But they have a process to follow that works well for them. But this is historic Valley Junction, and there's more of an emotional attachment to it. So I think from that standpoint, I think, and again, to use it as a pun, sort of, but I feel a little derailed by the whole thing. And then in addition to that, we had something come up today with the subcommittee on P&Z regarding an art project in one of the open spaces between on 4th Street and 5th Street, down around, I think, 211. And that's an area that you just finished, we just had it bricked, planters just put in, new bike racks, or bike rails, whatever you want to call them, are there. And I think they want to go ahead and put artwork in there. And the artwork doesn't conform to the master plan that we saw from 2016. It's cute, it's whimsical, and it would be nice for the area. But when you look at this plan, they're looking at these open spaces in a lot of different ways. And again, we just finished doing it, so to come back and say, hey, we should tear these out and redo them. But there's a very limited amount of open space that's available down. I mean, there's only 4 or 5 areas. And the council just recently approved G-MIGs to be able to have patio seating outside in one of those. And I think Cooper's is looking to do that. And then in this master plan, they talk about a lot of really cool things that can be done there. You can have cultural events, you can do music, you can do patio seating, you could have pop-up vendors opening up around there, things like that to enhance the business opportunities and to make it more exciting if it was modified to do that. So that's why I spoke in opposition to the art, because it's like, until we have a plan, why are we doing things and spending money? Why are we getting a consultant when the very people that are vested in it and they're willing to sit down and work, you can see that collectively. In the earlier group tonight, you look at us, we're pretty lame. And so I think, would that be the consensus of the group, that we feel derailed and a bit disenfranchised in the system? Because the city has a system, they have a process, and they're gonna follow it. And by God, they're gonna follow it. And we'll get the results, and some of us will have some of it trickle down to us. Is that how you felt? So I think that's the consensus of the group. And again, no disrespect. I thought we had a terrific council meeting. And I think the follow-up and the input and the ideas, I think we all learned a lot. And these people have a lot invested. Nan's 33 years, right? And so she wants that area to be good. Everybody wants it to be good. Even the developers that are working on these projects, they want things to be good too. But I just think it's a little premature.
So Ralph, identify for me what you think the next steps are.
Well, it's kind of interesting, but I think input from the community is probably more important than a typical process. So when I say input, get together the key players. And it's not necessarily, it's going to be, from my perspective, it's going to be the merchants, it's going to be historical, and it's going to be the Neighbors Association sitting down and everybody getting a copy of the 2016 master plan and working through it collectively, saying, because there's so much you can learn from reading this plan. It's just absolutely, really well done. And then we can have our set of priorities, and that'll help create the opportunity to pick the right consultant.
Okay.
And then city staff can use their expertise in deciding, where the process is. And the city staff, they need to kind of lighten up a little bit and work with us a little bit. And I mean that in a respectful way. It's like there shouldn't be any opposition because we're all working towards the same thing.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think, to me, the goal should be at the end is to come up with some kind of parameters so that anybody that's looking to invest in Valley Junction understands what the rules are, and they don't have to go through 3 different committees, and then through planning and zoning, and then through city council. I mean, I hear people in Des Moines that say with all the layers they got to go through, they don't even develop down there anymore.
I wouldn't build in Des Moines because there's so many loopholes.
So I think, I understand, and maybe the next step, Tom, would be is to have the staff meet with the merchants, the historical group, and the neighborhood association, get the input, and then let's get a consensus on kind of where we're at in light of the plan we had, plus the current input. So to Ralph's point, let's kind of figure out we can measure the consultants back against what our goals are, based after we hear the input.
That's what I thought we were going to do after last
I did too, to be honest with you, and they were your words.
Yeah.
And I think you've perfectly communicated it again, in all honesty.
Okay.
I think we could have a really terrific and dynamic plan if we listen to everybody.
Yeah.
And we spend some time together with the people that are vested in the neighborhood.
That's exactly how that master plan got put together, was by everyone's input.
And I was encouraged by the conversation with the bank because the concerns were addressed in a way that financially the bank could address them. You always worry, and my comment was, you always worry about, and I work for a developer, So you can only get so much rent for your product in the marketplace, and if someone comes in and layers expenses on top of it, you can't do your project and be successful because of the expenses. So at the end of the day, if we all have a mind of let's try to get to something that financially makes sense and looks nice, the bank resolution was a home run. If it got to a point where this is the only way it's going to work, then we may have to look at changing our incentive program so that people can actually build things down there and get an economic return to them. So I think there's a win-win here. To your point, Ralph, as long as everybody's understanding and listens to everybody's concerns and try to find the win-win. So I was encouraged by what happened with the bank.
Yeah. Well, you know, that like, you know, people sometimes communication and information. And Jason with the bank said, I have a lot more information I want to share. And so he helped bring that project along because he really has his heart and soul in the community. He really loves Valley Junction, he loves West Des Moines, and he wants to work here and he wants to be in that new building. He's been in kind of a dumpy building for a number of years, you know. And it didn't take a lot for the architect to come up with just one scaling idea, because that is you're going to see that, and it's pretty dominant. And when they pulled the windows out and made changes to the plan, it's like a massive stone. And just doing one little thing like that, I think everybody kind of liked that idea because it's sort of like it just toned it all down and it made it a little more Valley Junction-like. You know?
So let me ask you, Ralph, on the 3 groups down there, instead of inviting everybody that belongs to all 3 groups, is it realistic to have each group have 3 or 4 people that can represent the group that comes to the meeting? Instead of having 75 people, can we get 3 or 4 from each group so we have maybe a dozen?
We were of that opinion too, and we were of that understanding that's what was going to happen.
And that's what I thought
like
as
with
well.
the association, we have a group of 3 or 4 that 4 actually volunteered from the association. I know the Merchant Association would be represented by 3 or 4 people. I know 2 other people that aren't here tonight that wanted to participate in it. So again, 4 people.
Okay.
And then I'm not sure in terms of Matt's group. I don't know anybody other than just Matt. But we reach out to him. You can get.
Hi, Your Honor. I am here.
Okay.
First of all, we're commonly referred to as the Merchants Association because there was a Merchants Association before there was a Historic Valley Junction Foundation. So I think those 2 things are often the same thing. But I would say that we were under the impression that the first group to discuss this would be the Historic Master Plan Implementation Committee, and that would be focused on putting together the offer or the RFP to find the consultant. And then once the consultant is brought in, that there would be other people brought to the table. But there are 4 Historic Valley Junction Foundation related or business district related people who serve on the Master Plan Implementation Committee. That's presently me, Debbie Westfall-Swander, who owns the theatrical shop, Julie Eliason from KCL Engineering, and then recently we added Tom Jordison, who owns some of our other historic properties down here. So as far as the Master Plan Implementation Committee, that's the 4 people who represent the business district. And I guess my understanding, reading the memo in tonight's council packet, was that that group next would be called upon to review the RFP for the consultant. And so as I read that today, that's what I was expecting to be the next step.
But it sounds like from Ralph's standpoint, that committee needs to be broadened for some other input.
Well,
that's true, Your Honor. I think that the memo that was circulated for the meeting tonight indicated that that would happen maybe quite a bit after the consultant is brought in, but I don't know if that's the direction council wants to go. You know, and even the comments at the beginning of this meeting indicated that there might be some opportunity to bring in maybe a variety of people. The memo lays out as many as 3 different tracks that would be going on different topics. So I'm not sure. It feels like there definitely is going to be an opportunity for more people to be involved, which I think is what everybody wants. I am aware I've had a lot of people informally reaching out to me, asking to be involved in this process too. And the answer I gave to a couple other business owners today was I think they want the Master Plan Implementation Committee to look at the RFP, but then after that, when we get going, we'd have the chance to have more people. That's not that I'm advocating really for that position necessarily, but that's what I understood as of reading the council packet, what we were headed for.
And I think Ralph's concern is that there's other groups down there that would like to have input before the consultant is
Yes.
selected.
I think that makes sense too.
I think it's a unifying thing.
Right.
That would bring everybody together. I mean, people all over West Des Moines, even the new parts of West Des Moines, have a certain affinity for Valley Junction. They like Valley Junction, and it's something that, you know, it's worth preserving, it's worth respecting, and the things that we do now, we can't change in 20 years. And so, Matt, to your point, I agree with you at that point. The implementation committee is a logical step. But I think we need to do some due diligence with the people that are involved with it up front, and maybe use the master plan as a guide. So then we can then take that to the implementation committee and say, all right, we're feeling good about this. This is where we should be. And we're not talking a lot of work or effort
right.
here. I mean, the dialogue that we had walking around, Renee, did you learn a lot? Was there a lot of information?
Well, I have been in Valley Junction so many times, so I saw it from a different viewpoint walking behind the buildings and in the alleys, let me tell you that. So that was a different perspective and a different look, and just listening to you guys as we walked through the tour was very helpful. I think it all comes back down to what I'm hearing is that you all want your voices heard in a much more facilitative way than just kind of coming up to the dais and sharing a few comments and really pouring your voice into some ideas and concepts. Prior to a consultant being hired that kind of really guides strategy, once they're hired, things are kind of already molded. So I think we need to move the needle. I personally think we should hire a facilitator that has facilitative meetings with all of these individuals that can pull together a good report, and then you can look to hiring a consultant to do what we want to do. Because there are going to be lots of conversations that happen and lots of different comments. We want to capture all of that. Everybody's going to have their own feelings and thoughts. Not everybody's going to agree. So I think, to me, if I were heading up this, I'd hire a really seasoned facilitator that has no vested interest in exactly other than just listening and processing, putting together a final report that could be the impetus behind a consultant being hired to execute and strategize about how to incorporate these concepts into what you all want. That's what I would do.
So, Mr. Mayor, building on that, because that's a good idea. If we had 3 or 4 meetings with a professional facilitator to formulate some ideas and plans with a group of people invited in from those special groups, would it be a good first step for us? Would you feel more involved in from a participation standpoint?
So maybe what we need is to get, 4 people from each of the 3 organizations and include the Historic Master Plan Implementation Committee. Then everybody hears the conversation. Get that group together with the facilitator and see if there can be a general consensus that brings forward as far as what these issues are and what people would like to see, and then go hire the consultant.
Exactly.
Is it possible to reach out to Tesca and see if they've got somebody that would be good at that facilitator? I mean, they had so many neighborhood meetings and there was so much information that came from it, and they did such a wonderful job of making sure that everybody was heard and writing down all of the comments and stuff. So that would be my suggestion, Tom, to reach out to Tesca and see if any of their people are willing to come back and do some of the stuff that was done back in 2016.
Yeah, and I'd say rather than us kind of deciding on who, and I think that's a good recommendation, there's 2 or 3 other good facilitators out there that a facilitator is a person just listens and processes and understands what people are saying and captures the essence of their dialogue. So I'm hoping that we could look at more than just one and look at a couple of folks that might be willing to come in and have these very strategic conversations with these wonderful groups. But I also want to say I really appreciate you inviting us to the tour. I had other plans, but I'm glad I came. I'm glad I was there. And it was a guided tour that I've never had before. When you go to Valley Junction, you're just shopping, you go to the shops, but to be walking around these buildings and seeing all the stuff and green space and all of that, it's a different kind of a perspective. So I'm glad I was there.
Yeah, well, I can assure you we're always more fun.
Oh, okay, all right, well, we need to hurry up and get to the fun, sooner than later.
Okay, so Tom, who do you want to shepherd this? We need to get 3 or 4 reps from each of the 3 groups, plus the historic master plan implementation.
Got another person right now, please.
What's it?
Can you guys hear me? This is Phil Calhoun at 804 4th Street.
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to make a point that some of our residents are having a hard time, I guess, understanding how to interact with the residential association at the moment. There's not a lot of clear structure. We've been told it's all just more or less volunteer, ad hoc. And we've even had a couple experiences recently where meetings are being canceled and moved and then kind of jumped on people literally within 24 hours. So I'm not exactly, I guess the confidence in some of the recent interactions we've had is not, it's not confidence inspiring. Actually, what I was expecting was out of this that with the advent of the internet, we're making big investments in that. There should be a way of soliciting comments using things like, oh man, I'm trying to think of, I just got a survey about the Raccoon River Park project. I remember I did something for University Avenue corridor where people can leave comments and you can get some demographic information. That's really where I thought this could go, rather than, I guess, just, I'm not really sure how electing these 3 to 4 people from all these things goes, because the structure of some of these groups is not very transparent.
Well, it seems to me when we get through and get a consultant, then we're going to go out and ask for public comment like you just suggested. But we're trying to get some census of what a common vision and goal would be for at least starting the process. But clearly, we'll take public input from anybody and everybody that wants to give it once we get our arms around some of these parameters.
Right.
Is your question, I can't remember, I couldn't catch what your name was. Was your question basically if the consultant leads to step 3, step 4, step 5, really you're wondering how to be part of the step 1 conversation?
I think so. Earlier is better. Earlier is better. That's kind of what you're getting at. I feel like there are just ways of collecting feedback, and then from multiple people without us literally, to the mayor's comment, literally 75 people piling into a room. I mean, there should be ways of doing this where that's not necessary.
But historically,
So that's gonna be later
historically
on.
what we've done is we've worked through the process to get to a plan or a proposal, and then that's put out for the broad public comment.
Yes.
But you got to have someone in charge of trying to get your parameters around
Right.
what those are before you open it up.
That's exactly
To
how the
the
master
entire
plan was
city.
put together.
Right.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, I see what you mean.
And while you're coming up, I'd just like to also say that as you develop the members of these different groups, have diversity of thought in the, not everybody, one group that all thinks the same and wants the same. I think we're all better when we have diversity of thought in these committees so that we can hear things from all kind of perspectives. I think that's really important for this to be successful.
Nancy Earl, 224 7th Street, and Nan's Nummies, 501 Elm Street, right next to what's going to be a horrible apartment building. But anyway, what I wanted to say is I think the bank's plans are wonderful. I think moving it up to the street, like all the other buildings, is wonderful. I like that they kind of changed it a little to fit in better with the neighborhood. And the comment on the apartment building that's supposed to go up behind me, I think the zoning is wrong. And I think a lot of this business district on 5th was zoned for customers coming and going from retail stores, and that's why they don't have to have parking spaces for the apartment building. And I think, well, I'll talk about that later when we have the meeting on the apartment building again, but this master plan that was done in 2017 and not very well implemented, I don't see why we have to pay another consultant when we've got a good plan right there, and we should just do it. So
Well, maybe when your committee gets together, you can figure out if that's the consensus for the group.
I think there was maybe 1 or 2 things done out of it, and that was it. And it was a good plan.
Yeah, well, and maybe,
we're
like I
gonna be
said, when
moving-
you
we're
get the
moving forward.
historic implementation, master plan implementation committee together with the
Yeah.
reps of these other 3, and if you guys all come together and say, look, we got our parameters, we know what we consensus, I mean, we're not interested in hiring people that we don't need to hire.
Right.
Right. Well, save some money.
So, you know, I mean,
Reinvent the
yeah,
wheel.
I mean, the whole idea is try to refine it down farther if you need to. So it sounds like we just need to get the 3 groups with their reps and the historic master plan and sit down and start having a conversation. And then to Renee's point, if you need a good facilitator, and we use the people that seem, you know, if we need one, let's use, you know, and you can open it up, but Tasca did a good job, I think, with that original. But, you know, instead of just handing it to them, to Renee's point, you can share it with a couple others and see who rises to the top. Because we
I'm
may
not
be missing
opposed to
somebody.
this person.
No, right.
I'm just saying, I think we want to make sure
Right.
that we just don't hand it to someone, that they earn the right to facilitate
Okay.
that.
So, yeah.
I also wanted to say thank you. You guys put up with a lot of crap. And I'm sure you don't get much thanks, but thank you for listening, even when you don't want to.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nan.
We'll stop by for our cookie. How's
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
One thing, Ralph, you had mentioned one thing. One thing is clear, we have, you can find the master plan online. And basically, everybody should have a homework assignment in going through that plan. Because I assume I'm gonna assume that most of it is done really, really well. And I've glanced through it, I have not read every word on every page, full disclosure. However, that should be everyone's homework assignment, not to call a teacher on there, but I'm assuming most of the things in the master plan are pretty darn good. And the things that we need to trim, well, we can trim those. The things we need to change, we can change those. But gosh, the words reinvent the wheel, we do not need to do that if we already have a master plan. So let's all do our homework. It'll be great.
Okay, anything else on that item? I think we got some direction.
This is the only thing we do the implementation, how we can get our groups together on our own and do it. I mean, and then
Thank you.
involve the city.
We just, yeah, we need to get the 3 or 4 reps from those 3 groups, their names and contact information, so we can get everybody together.
Yep.
Sending it to, who do you want them to send it to, Tom?
Lynn Tweet.
So is a week a good time frame, or you need 2 weeks, or what do you think to get we're trying to move forward and get the groups formed?
Here's one thing I want people to remember. Our packet tonight was 600 pages.
Uh-huh.
And most of those things go through the development employees. We only have so much staff, so this is very important to us, but we can't do it like that. We will work, I love your ideas and input, and I think we need to kind of take a step back, actually, so it's probably good to kind of relook at how we're approaching this. And Ralph, I think you all said some good stuff up here, but just remember, it's not instantaneous that we can do, we'll come back fast, we're doing a comprehensive plan, or doing all these other things. So every 2 weeks, if you look at the volume of material we go through, a lot of it goes through them. So I just want you to keep aware that we're moving on that, but it's not gonna happen instantaneously.
I guess the point in terms of timelines, we would have a group put together within the parameters of the mayor to be able to present to somebody on staff, maybe.
Well, then,
And then we would need to find a facilitator based on.
Right.
Experience with that, and then we have a working group.
yeah, we wanna make sure that the person on the phone doesn't come in and say, well, your guys are dominating everything. You're controlling the agenda. So we wanna make sure we do get the cross-section.
agree.
What Councilman Hardman also said, diversity of thought and some other, so that's the challenge. We want a workable group, and we'll try to get, obviously you guys are engaged, so that's great. So we just get some other people at the table and I'll go through this.
The biggest thing is communication. You know, we got to keep everybody informed of what's going on. You know, we know this isn't going to get solved overnight. That's why we've made the moratorium even to November 1st. But again, we just got to keep everybody that's interested in this thing informed of what's going on and not give them the impression that nothing's happening.
And so maybe if it does not do a knee-jerk reaction, let me get back to who will be the contact person.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
I think Lynn about what is going to go to, yeah. But we'll get you the right name, though. We'll get
You want Lynn's cell phone number? No, I'm kidding.
But also keep in mind, if there is a facilitator, whether it's the person that was brought up tonight or anyone else, it's going to take a while to get them kind of up to speed and all of that. So I think that there was good understanding tonight that voices are going to be heard from 3 different groups. It really needs to be diversity of thought. Please don't get everybody that thinks like you guys. I think you think well, but just have different other opinions in the groups. And then it's going to take a while to get the facilitator going, but at least we know that voices are going to be heard. And there's going to be a final report of what people say after the facilitator is done.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, who's cooking?
Are there any other matters that any council member wants to raise tonight?
Tom, we're trying to adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
Are you catering in pizza, Tom? Are you catering in pizza now?
We're adjourned.
I have a dog that needs to go outside.